Well. Welcome into TexAgs Radio. I don't know. I started like that, OB. Well. What does that mean?
Things are well.
TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. I'm David Nuño. He is Olin Buchanan. And by the way, this is another one of the CC Creations TexAgs gear. The maroon version of the shirt we already have that's in black. They have that for sale.
Yeah, I need to get some of those.
You got to go, man. Got to flex. So, look, there's a lot of stuff to get into over the next 3 hours. Billy will join us at the 10 o'clock hour, as he normally does on Mondays. And there's a lot of things that we'll get into then, all right? We'll get into that stuff then. So, other stuff to get into this morning. I didn't get to watch as much preseason as some of the people out there, but I know there's some Aggie football players making some noise there. So, at some point, we will get into that. But later on today, OB, the AP Top 25 poll comes out, I think I read somewhere around 12 Eastern, which would be right at the end of this show, somewhere during Louis' show. Where do you expect Texas A&M to show up, or do they show up in the AP poll?
Yeah, I think they'll show up. If I was voting, I'd probably put them somewhere between 21, 22, 23, right in there.
Yep. Coaches poll, they were 25, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that all makes sense. You can look at it, project it, all the things we've talked about, how many close games they had, all the injuries, the people coming back. But I think you have to put some apprehension, attach it to them, so you don't want to go rank them too high to start. And that's fine. I think that's great. I think it'd be – I wouldn't bother me a bit. I wouldn't think of it as being disrespectful if they weren't ranked at all.
Let me ask you a question. Is 8 wins – I know that's not what I'm not talking about 2023 when I say 8 wins. Is 8 wins considered a bad year?
Yes.
Okay. So how many wins did Texas have last year?
I don't even – 9, I think. I don't even know.
Did they have 9 or
I don't
8?
know.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think they went 8-5. But my point is –
yeah, I guess they did lose that bowl game.
They, in 2 years, have done what A&M has basically done in 2 years. I understand why our arrow is not pointing super high nationally because there's a narrative out there, fool me once, fool me twice.
Right.
I get all that, right? But hadn't Texas fooled a lot of people many, many times?
Yeah, but if Texas is ranked higher, it'll be because, as much as anything, they have what appears to be a proven quarterback coming back.
Yep.
And a much easier path to 10 wins than A&M has.
Okay, a quarterback who apparently has got a six-pack, throws great, everything's amazing from camp. Great, I'd love to hear that. I actually don't. But a guy who looked really good, he looked pretty good for a half against Alabama. I don't think he looked fantastic the second half of Big 12 play.
Well,
he looked really good for a
Didn't
half,
he get
right?
hurt in that Alabama game and he missed like 4 or 5? I mean, I'm not a big, I'm not a Quinn Ewers fan or non-fan. He is what he is. The few times I watched him play, you would see one play, you would see him make a play where you say, "Oh wow, I wonder why." And then a few minutes later, he'd make a play and it looked like it looked kind of inept. Like I guess is not uncommon for first year starters.
But I think you're onto a point. It is truly about the quarterback, the team's perception, right? For instance, Arkansas didn't have a pretty good – I mean, they had a better year than A&M, even though A&M beat them. They went 7-6 last year. But they've got the quarterback, right? Yeah. And when you get a quarterback, I think you get more good grace.
Yeah, I think so. I think when you're trying to project how good a team can be, you start at quarterback. And quarterback's nothing to sneeze at.
Right. So you get – and then A&M has a quarterback that we're all high on here in College Station. There are a couple guys that we're high on. But I think nationally there's still a little apprehension like, well, we got to see it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, well, if you look at it nationally, you're going to say, well, this kid went 4-4 as a starter, and they lost to Auburn. And now, maybe you aren't aware of all the factors that were involved, like Moose not playing and A-Chain being out and all that. And then, you can say, so I'm supposed to go all in on those guys because they had a freshman guy that beat UMass.
So Quinn Ewers went 6-4 as a starter.
Yeah.
6-4 as a starter. So
and see, they don't have Bijan Robinson anymore.
Right.
but they think they got running.
I know,
backs
and
that
I
will
know
step in
they're
and be
getting a
good.
lot of. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. They're
That's fine.
getting a lot of love for their offensive line, and this is not a Texas versus A&M thing. I just think when you show a little bit from the quarterback spot, that is going to carry over for the next season, and no doubt about it. Connor did show something at the end of the year, but I think his sample set was so much smaller that's why there's a little hesitation. And I understand that hesitation. They went 5-7. There should be a hesitation.
See,
I get it.
The team I would look at that I wonder where they're going to be ranked as opposed to A&M. And, of course, I may end up being proved real wrong on that because I don't think they're going to be as good as Tennessee.
Right.
And I think Tennessee will probably be ranked a lot higher than A&M. And I'm going to ask, what is that based on? Is it based on a quarterback that had a big day against Vanderbilt and a big day against Clemson team that was clearly no longer playing?
Yeah, that I will tell you that's the why.
Or is it because more of the national media believe in Josh Heupel and no longer believe in Jimbo Fisher?
I think that is both. Both things can be true. I think Milton's had opportunities, right? Like this is not like his first chance to be the guy. He's had opportunities.
At Michigan, he was a failure.
Right.
And, okay, maybe they're going to say, yeah, but now he's got Josh Heupel. I'm like, yeah, because that Harbaugh guy's such a terrible coach, right?
Right.
So, but, you know, when I look at Tennessee, I see a team that has all kinds of question marks and replacing a quarterback that, you know, was a Heisman contender, probably should have won it.
Right.
But for some reason, I think most of the national voters don't have as much concern about Tennessee, and I think it goes back to Heupel. They believe in Heupel.
Well, I think you do deserve a little bit of the momentum bump after a nice season, and a somewhat unexpected season that Tennessee had. I believe that, and I think there should be a penalty for the lack of momentum that A&M. I mean, there was momentum in the last game against a team that clearly was playing for a chance to get into the playoffs. People forget to think about that part of the equation. It's not like LSU didn't have everything in the world to play for.
By the way, I was in Baton Rouge this week. Baton Rouge, they think that they're winning the national championship. They're comparing everything to 2019. Hey, in 2019, you know, we were in the second-year quarterback who is a transfer, like Jaden Daniels is Joe Burrow.
Right.
Yeah, okay, that's kind of where the similarities end. You know, they have nice receivers, but they don't have receivers like they had in 2019, right? But, you know, they're making all those look, everything is the same as it was in 2019. So, you know, they're going to, you know, beat people by 40 and 50 points. Okay, well, we'll see about that.
It's funny, though, like when I've gone on other radio shows, and I'm sure some of this, people will come back that from opposing fans, right? That I think A&M is going to win the national championship. When I talk about what I see and what I think they've fixed, that's not necessarily how I look at it. I look at it as they've got all the talent in the world to be considered one of those teams. Now they got to put it together. There's a difference between thinking, you know, look, I have my questions about Georgia, but they do get my good grace because of what they've done the last couple of years.
Well, they have a lot of starters coming back too.
They do.
They do. No, they don't have.
But on defense, not as many, right?
They still have quite a few.
Okay.
Yeah. But you go back and when you look at what teams have, what they return, and I do think you're right that you get a certain amount of grace based on what you did. But I always go back to, I wish I could remember the actual year. I could look it up. Notre Dame. And I remember having a discussion with a big Notre Dame fan before the season. And the year before, they had been like 11-2. And I'm saying, yeah, but you had your quarterback, Brady Quinn, is gone, and your receiver, Jeff Smarge, is gone. They had a running back who was a 1,000-yard run. He's gone. You weren't good on defense. Why are you going to be better? It's because it's Notre Dame. Well, they ended up going like 6 or 4-8.
I remember that, yeah.
So at some point, you gotta look at the guys you lost, and can you be that good again without the guys that made you good?
I think it'd be very interesting to know what everybody's parameters are to figure out how they vote for this.
Yeah.
Because, like, for 23 and 23, you have a style. I have a style. Billy's got a style. All the posters have a style. I try to write out a criteria for myself. There's no math, there is math, but it's a very Nuño scientific approach to it that really doesn't make sense in other people's eyes, but works for me. I'd be interested what, like, Joe Schmo in Wisconsin, when he's figuring out, like, has he watched enough A&M to really have an educated opinion? Is he based on only last year? Like, there are some people that do. All they consume is college football, and they take that vote very seriously, right?
And then there are others that will look at ESPN or somebody, and they'll look at somebody else and use that as a guideline. Whoever was first to put out a top 25, and they'll use that as a guideline.
Right. Somebody is asking us to face the camera when we speak, because I guess the volume is a little low on one of the either YouTube or TexAgs.com. So apologies to that. We'll fix that. OB is going to be the ventriloquist.
They want to read our lips.
Hey, now. Let's. By the way, if you want to text the show and let us know what you think, where do you think A&M is going to come out in the AP poll, and do you think it's going to be fair? All that and more. 979-693-1150. We go behind the glass and talk to a very busy Nick Savage. Nick, good morning.
Howdy, good morning, y'all. Sorry, yeah, again, we're working on the, it's the YouTube feed that the volume's a little low on. We're working on it. We'll figure it out. Mostly Dalton, though. He's the big brains behind the operation. But
big brains on Brad.
Yeah,
Check out
absolutely.
the big brain on Dalton.
What movie's that from?
Pulp Fiction. Come on, give me.
Did you know that, Nick?
Make one
Pulp
that's
Fiction?
difficult.
Yeah.
I've seen Pulp Fiction.
No, did you know that line?
No.
Look at the big brain on Brad.
Challenge me, for goodness sake.
No shot. Anyways.
Mike says good now, by the way. I don't know if it's working or not. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, I mean, kind of just talking about what y'all were. Where do we think A&M, I guess, is the question, where do we think they should be ranked, or where do we think they're going to be ranked? I think that's two different questions.
No, where they're going to be ranked.
They're going to be. Okay, so.
Oh, but you know what? Where
Play both?
should they be? Because they might be the same. Where should they be ranked, OB?
24, 25.
See? It's
That's
roughly the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing.
I
Right
like I said,
in the 20s.
Wouldn't bother me a bit if they were unranked.
Wouldn't bother me either.
Who cares about where you're ranked at the beginning of the year?
Good point.
I don't really
That's all I got, David.
So you think they'll be 24,
well,
25?
I think they'll be in the 20s.
Yeah.
20 through 25. I think that's fair, and
It doesn't
should
mean
be
anything.
expected. Exactly.
Like, you know what means something, OB? Score more than the other team. That's the only thing that matters.
That's all that matters.
Every time you can, you should.
Every time, score more than the other guy.
And every time you score less, you
lose.
And then our fans are mad.
Yeah, that's what they should be.
And when they score more than the other team, no matter how it happens, fans are
usually happy. Around here, I've seen them still be angry.
Right. Where did I read that Clemson and Alabama haven't won less than 11 games in I forget how many years, but it's a ridiculous number. And they had a bad year both last year.
Right.
Oh, it would be nice to have that problem.
Yeah, it would. It should be that way.
It would be really nice. All right, let's go to Kay Negley.
Good morning, guys. How are y'all?
I'm well.
Good weekends. How was Baton Rouge, OB?
It was suspiciously like College Station in that the weather was quite hot.
Yeah? What'd you guys do?
We drove over there and we helped Quinn move into his fraternity house.
Party a little bit or no?
Yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah, a little party.
Yeah. I did have a good shrimp salad.
Huh.
Yeah, it was very good.
From where?
George's.
Good.
Yeah, it's a place called George's, a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Kay, what'd you do? You probably partied a little bit.
I went to my little cousin's second birthday party, so I didn't have much of an eventful weekend at all. It was still fun, though.
That sounds like a good
Well,
time.
Kay was hanging out on Sorority Row.
Oh,
I
filming
was.
some TikToks. And
How was
shorts.
that? How come you didn't invite us to come with you?
Yeah, I would have. That would have been a heck of an interview. If you have not seen it already, on
Who's the
Instagram,
narc?
on Instagram, we posted a video testing sorority girls' knowledge since it's work week and rush week this week. Actually did surprisingly well.
Their knowledge of what?
Aggie football.
Oh,
so
okay.
who's their offensive coordinator? We showed pictures of players, saw if they could guess them. And I was actually thoroughly surprised. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But
Were
I was
there any
impressed.
like cringy moments?
Actually, like not too bad. Like
Yeah?
there were.
Was it almost disappointing? You kind of want cringiness, or no? You wanted see how smart our sorority girls are.
We were either going for both. If they knew it, great, and if they didn't, it would also kind of be pretty funny. So there was definitely some moments where they had absolutely no idea, and I was like a little disappointed. But some girls were like, "Oh, Bobby Petrino," and I was like, "Okay, there you go." So we have something good over there. They know their knowledge.
What else is going on with you?
Yeah, so, well, just news in general. Women's basketball legend Gary Blair was enshrined into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame on Saturday night. That Hall of Fame in class includes, obviously, Gary Blair, Dirk Nowitzki, Tony Parker, Dwayne Wade. So some pretty good names next to him.
Very Texas heavy.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah.
That's my dude right there.
My son's favorite player.
Is he?
In fact, he has his jersey tacked up on the wall of the frat house.
Well, I love that. He is one of the nicest athletes I've ever
heard
worked with.
that. I've heard that about him.
Fantastic guy. He'll make fun of you. I may have told this on the air before. I used to be the voice, quote unquote, of the global games. It was this event that Donnie Nelson, the former GM of the Mavs, would put together, where he'd invite players from around the world to play in this tournament at where SMU plays?
Moody Coliseum.
Moody Coliseum, right? And I was the voice of it. I'd do the announcing and try to tell jokes, and they would fail. And Dirk would come and watch, and he'd tap me on the shoulder and say, "You're terrible," like how in his Dirk voice, like, but in a nice, kidding, loving way. He was always one of my favorite people to deal with. I think I've told the story about the one time I went out to drinks with a couple staffers, Dirk and Antoine Walker, when he first got traded. And they're ordering sake and champagne, and I'm like, at this point, I'm making no money for the Mavericks. I'm getting really scared that they're going to have to split up the bill. I'm getting very scared. I'm 22, 20, whatever I was, 24 years old, and the bill comes, and they give it to Antoine Walker, and he had just been traded to the Mavericks maybe the week before, and he looks at it, and he goes, "Yeah, Dirk's got it," and he hands it to Dirk, and Dirk pays for the whole thing.
Well, Dirk could afford it.
Yeah. Well, Antoine was making, I think, double what Dirk was making in those days. This was like pre-Dirk MVP days. This is like Antoine just being traded from the Celtics, kind of like, I think he was making $14 million a year at that point.
Okay.
Dirk maybe 7 or 8. He was very poor, obviously.
Yeah. Tough life.
Good times. I'm sorry, I made that about me, Kay. What else do we have?
No, you're fine.
I know.
Everything's about you, David. This is your show.
No, this is the People Show that I've been entrusted to host.
Okay. So on some soccer news, Texas A&M had 4 different goal scorers in a combined win over Texas State in an exhibition match on Friday night. They won 4-0, like I said, and then with the preseason slate complete, they now turn their attention to an August 17th season opener versus Florida State. And then some other sports news, volleyball will kick off this week, the Jamie Morrison era, on Wednesday, August 15th, with the maroon and white scrimmage that will be at 6:30 p.m. at Reed Arena.
A lot of excitement for volleyball. I love the bird, but there's a new energy there with Jamie. And I had some folks that I know had their kids go to his soccer camp, or not soccer, volleyball camp, and they're like, it's a well-run machine.
Volleyball, to me, this might surprise you, is a very enjoyable sport to watch. It is so athletic and fast, and so much precision is required. I actually, because my niece played, right, and so I ended up watching it a lot and really appreciate the game. Yeah. So hopefully they'll have a really good year.
I hope so.
That's a good sport to watch.
By the way, if Jamie is anything like the new coaches that they've been bringing in, it's going to be a fun year. When you look at what Ross has been able to bring in the last few years, I mean, it's been it's been fun.
Yeah, they've done a good job hiring coaches.
Joni and keep going down the list, right?
Schloss.
Is he good?
Yeah,
pretty good, right?
I think they've got some good
Trisha
golf
Ford.
coaches in, and Trisha Ford. Yeah, I think they've
Garrett
done
Chadwell. Yeah, I mean Corton. They've done an amazing job. All right, let's hit a break. You have anything else, Miss Nagley?
No, sir, I did not.
When we come back, we will hit 23 and 23. We're in the top 10, OB. We're in the top 10. Do you know who number 10 is?
I do.
Don't say it, but do you know who it is?
Yeah, I do.
Feel good about it?
Yeah, he may be underrated.
He may be underrated, is right. So today's Monday. Unfortunately, we can't have a show meeting where I'd like to have a show meeting, which would be
at Fargo's.
We're going to have a meeting today. I mean, it'd be nice if we had Fargo's to go along with it.
It would be. It'd be a MEATING if it was at Fargo's.
It would be a meeting.
Meeting.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to get at Fargo's?
Well, it depends on the day.
So you just change. You're like a womanizer of food.
I am. I'm a foodnizer. If it's on Tuesdays and Saturdays, it's rib tips.
Right.
Was my favorite. Any day the brisket is outstanding, but I really like the chopped beef sandwich. It's on another level. But if I was there on a Thursday, for instance, I'd get a big, thick, fat pork chop with
Juicy
some
too,
juicy,
right? Oh yeah, it
juicy
just pops out and hits
pork
people in
chop
the eye.
with some macaroni and cheese
together,
not
separated.
not separate.
They're equal.
Not separate at all. Not separate but equal. Macaroni and cheese.
They've
They're
been
together in perfect harmony.
They've been together for about 22 years. Not macaroni and cheese has been together longer than that, but Fargo's has football weekends, office parties, weddings, anniversaries, you name it. 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan, without a doubt.
With the best barbecue in the world.
That's their trademark because it's true.
It's true.
It's
Fargo.
Look at Little Sister. That's your jam?
I like Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
Yeah, who doesn't? He may be the greatest guitar player ever.
So I was watching Pulp Fiction this weekend. Not
Okay.
Pulp Fiction, sorry. I don't know how. Pulp Fiction, we talked about Roadhouse. Okay.
Roadhouse.
And
made you want to go kick everybody? Like
yeah,
Peter
there's
Griffin?
no doubt. I think I might. Dalton.
Since you've been doing all this kickboxing now,
Yeah, I felt like I could do it.
I think Dalton.
And he was small, too.
I think Dalton Hughes, like you. So I think
I thought I was big.
I think Dalton Hughes was named after the Patrick Swayze character Dalton.
But
from Roadhouse.
I made the mistake.
Okay.
Because I'm an idiot. Like, seriously, how do I not know this? When did that movie come out?
Oh,
80s?
God. No, I think it was later than that. I don't know.
Roadhouse.
I don't know.
I'm assuming it was the 80s.
It
okay?
all runs together for me. How old is Dalton?
Dalton Hughes?
Yeah.
Was he really named after
He
that
was
movie?
named after that
Is
character.
that's real? That's not
Yeah.
1989. So I was 13. Okay. I didn't know there was that much nudity in Roadhouse. How I didn't remember that? I was watching this with not only my boys, the girls were in the area. They weren't watching it with us, but they were in the area. There are a lot of nude scenes at Roadhouse that I had to turn off the TV, fast forward, and then like the kids were invested. The boys were invested in the movie, so I couldn't like completely turn it off. But like there was tops, backs, you name it, front, back, and side to side.
Your boys are 15?
Yeah, but the girls were in the area. So they were, like we were watching on the main TV in the house, and then, they'd be doing their thing, and
So-
Isla, you're 10, leave.
You can't see Patrick Swayze's back.
No, it's not just his back.
His buttocks.
There was
His gluteus maximus.
I think that we had, obviously, there's no think. The things that we watched in the 80s as teen and preteens, I would never let my kids watch now. Like, isn't Spaceballs, like, really dirty if you watch
You
it
know
now?
what? I've never watched it.
Oh, you're missing out.
I've never watched Spaceballs.
That's a classic right there.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of movies that I want to watch with my kids, and I start going down that path. Big has some. Remember the movie Big?
Yeah, of course.
Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
There's some inappropriate things in that movie. A lot of language that I wasn't expecting.
Okay.
So anyway, what's the name of this show?
Go Hour. TexAgs Radio.
Yeah, and the Go Out is presented by.
The Warehouse at CC Creations.
So good over there.
I finally got it right.
Yeah, you got it right. And we are TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. OB, I'm gonna let you pick what we talk about right now.
How about the top, the 22 for 23? As we get
Presented
to
by
the top 10.
The Charge Apparel. Aggie owned and operated premier polos and tees made in the USA. 12% of total sales are donated to organizations supporting veterans and mental health initiatives. You can visit them at thechargeapparel.com or find them on social media. On Instagram, it's The Charge Apparel, or on Twitter X, The Charge Brand. I just added the X there. Feels better. It's still Twitter to me. OB, let's get into it. So, no, I didn't say the number. Number 10 is Bryce Anderson, who, as you said at the end of the last segment, he might be underrated at 10.
I am so bullish on Bryce Anderson, man. If he was a stock, I'd buy. Man, this
Justin
guy,
Timberlake.
I would purchase if he was a stock. I think Bryce Anderson is going to leave here, hopefully in 3 years, but probably 2, as an absolute star.
Yeah.
Not just a good player, but a great
Like a
player.
star player.
Yes, I really believe that. And I think this is going to be a breakout year for him. You know how everybody talks about what a breakout year Noah Thomas is going to have?
Yep.
I think Bryce Anderson, you should expect him to have the same kind of breakout year.
I think the difference is Bryce kind of started that last year.
He gave you a good look at it.
Right.
He gave you a really good
more than what you're at.
preview.
Yes. He gave you a good preview. He had an excellent freshman year. Noah started coming on at the end of the year, didn't have a lot. And that's why there's still a little bit of, but this guy, I don't want to say has proven it, but has proven he can play at a high level in the SEC, and he's only going to go up.
To me, I'm a degenerate, so I make a lot of analogies to gambling. To me, Bryce Anderson is like, I've got 20. I'm at the table, and the dealer gave me a 10 and a jack. I'm sitting there with 20, and the dealer's showing a 7, and I'm thinking, I feel pretty good. I'm going to win this hand. I think he's a 20.
Yeah.
You're not guaranteed until you get a 21, but man,
You're pretty close.
I watch this guy, and it's about as close as you can to being a guarantee as I can see.
You think about both number ones, right? Evan Stewart, Bryce Anderson.
Yeah, those are some good number ones.
Those are some pretty good number ones. Both about the same body size. Like, both showed us a lot their freshman year. Both we expect that take some big steps. But more specifically for this one, go ahead.
No, you go. You finish.
More specifically in this one. This guy had, 2 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 3.5 tackles for loss, 28 tackles, appeared in 11 games. Unfortunately, had to hear a lot from Lane Kiffin in one particular game. But the dude's a stud and a leader on the defense already.
Let me tell you one of the things I love about him is that he was a quarterback in high school. I was talking to Kevin Smith last week, and he talked about how he had an offensive mentality. I think Bryce Anderson is going to be one. Look, he has great speed. He runs people down. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to make turnovers happen for Texas A&M and maybe even turn them into points. I just think when you're that athletic and just that good of a football player, not just an athlete, he's an athletic football player, that you're going to see him make big plays.
Yeah.
The guy, look,
he's going to have a pick six this
I wonder,
year, right?
Here's what I wouldn't be surprised. Here's what I wonder about. I wonder if he was a high jumper in high school. You know why? Because
Jumps high?
Well, let's put it, because Antonio Johnson at that nickel set that bar pretty high. And I think as high as that bar is, I think Bryce Anderson's going to jump over it.
You've been saying that for a little bit too. Like you've seen it.
I'm so high on Bryce Anderson for what just the flashes. You mentioned all those stats; they're very impressive. But if you thought about how many snaps he had, what he did in a limited number of snaps,
right,
and put that guy having playing the whole year, and I think you're going to see a guy that's probably challenging for all conference honors this year.
He
won't get it because he's from Texas A&M, but he'll be challenged.
All right, let's do this. Let's hit a break. We will come back with some more. You can text us on the text line 979-693-1150. 693-1150 is our number. Get into the show. We have a lot more to get into here at TexAgs Radio. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Olin Buchanan with me, David Nuño. We did want to correct something in the first segment. We were talking a little Ewers, Connor Wegman, and I think you accidentally.
I misspoke. I said that Connor was 4-4 as a starter. Man, he
2-2.
started 4 games.
Right.
I had 4. He was 2-2. Wins over LSU and UMass. They lost games he started against Auburn and Ole Miss.
And when I started talking about Quinn Ewers in that, Quinn Ewers also threw 10 interceptions to Connor's
0.
So there is that.
There is that.
There is that. Hey, Nick, are you there, buddy?
Yes, sir, I am.
Sorry to bring you to the program.
What's
I
up?
apologize. I listened to the Ryan Bingham album this weekend.
And what'd you think?
I didn't like it.
I didn't either.
I thought it was not a country album.
I agree. He's looking for a different sound for sure.
It was like, was there auto tune involved? I don't know if auto tune, but his microphone seemed hollow-ish.
It's like spacey is how I would describe it. I don't know, but again, not my cup of tea. But if you like it, you like it.
There were maybe 2 songs that are like, okay, I usually don't like albums the first time I hear them anyway. But this one, it was such a departure of what I liked about him, my huge history with Ryan Bingham the last 9 months. It was such a huge departure from it. There's some artists that do that. Ones that I like that everybody here doesn't, the Kanyes, the Bad Bunnies, they kind of recreate their sounds on albums. I'm sure some people you love. Do you like when they just do what they do, or do you like when they kind of try to experiment? Like George Strait, he's not going to experiment with.
Yeah, I like when you do what you do.
Yeah,
because there's a reason you got famous and popular.
I don't mind a little experimentation.
Yeah, a little bit,
and maybe 1 or 2 songs on an album that are a little different. I don't want a complete.
Well, I think you can do what you do and still have songs that sound different, but you can still.
But get back to what you do.
Yeah,
you can evolve.
You're not going to see George Strait go out there and try to rap.
That's a huge departure. I just bet on myself. Oh my God. No, I don't think you're going to see that at all. I think you would be very happy to hear. I was driving home from a soccer thing because I have it every day, it feels like. And on Elise, my daughter, I said, Dad, can you play Check Yes or No? I was like,
see, not one of the best hits, but still a great hit.
A good family song.
A good family song.
Well, David, do you know George Strait has a song that he used auto-tune in?
George Strait?
Yeah. Stars on the Water. It's if we can come back with that, Sean.
It was not a big hit for him.
Okay.
It was actually written by Rodney Crowell from Lufkin, Texas, I think. Or maybe not, but maybe he's from Houston. And he's written a lot of songs, and that's a good song. Jimmy Buffett, I think, did the best cover of that one. George Strait's cover of it is pretty mundane.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why.
Well, we'll come back with it. I don't want to hear there's certain people I don't want to have auto-tune on, and George Strait's certainly not one that I want to see that. All right. Is A&M a top 10 job, OB? It's an easy answer.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's such an easy answer. But 247 has something on it, and but I want to hear your reasons why it's a top 10 job.
Well, let's see. Dennis Franchione left Alabama for it.
That's a reason. Yep.
Jimbo Fisher left
Florida State
for it. R.C. Slocum was offered a job
Pittsburgh. Not Pittsburgh.
Well, Arizona Cardinals and at LSU twice, and stayed at Texas A&M.
Yep.
Jackie Sherrill left
from Mississippi State.
Well, no, he left Pittsburgh when Pittsburgh was a top 5 program to come to Texas A&M.
True. Yeah.
So, and here are the other reasons. Look, there's nothing that you need to be a successful coach that A&M doesn't provide. You have the great geography, you have resources, you have facilities, you have fan interest. Everything you need to be successful is provided by Texas A&M, either through funds or through geography.
So why hasn't it happened?
Or
consistently been on the brink.
I think A&M has made some mistake with coaches. I think for years, A&M would pay their head coach really well, but tried to get by on the cheap on everything else.
Right.
They've only had the great facilities within the last, 10 years.
Those SEC play.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they were woefully behind in facilities, even when RC was winning. And then when everybody knows this, Texas, LSU, Oklahoma started investing in their facilities, and the cheapskates that ran A&M were like, well, we're winning now. Why should we have to keep up? And they would try to tell you, because it's not going to keep winning. And they didn't. Why? Because they couldn't recruit with all the things that are important to kids that LSU, Texas, and Oklahoma had, because A&M's people in charge were buffoons.
Yep.
Let's just be honest about it. R.C. Slocum put together a heck of a recruiting class that never made it here, just on the promise of the Bright Complex, just on the promise, which he had to go out and go to Bum Bright and different Aggies in the NFL to solicit money for them. And only then did the administration say, oh, okay, we'll help out on this. And then with the promise of it, just by showing recruits that he was going to have a probably would have been a top 5 class that was going to include Adrian Peterson. And of course, they let people that don't know football, Robert Gates, make football decisions and fired your coach, and everything that all the bad years that followed was because you put guys in charge and let them make football decisions that don't know football. A&M, you've been your own worst enemy. Now, for the first time, A&M is putting all the investments in it. Everybody seems to be on the same page, and it's just a matter of time, and it could be this year when you finally start to break out.
But you don't change that narrative in 1 year.
You don't.
You have to. Let's
Think how long it took Clemson.
Sure. And I'm not necessarily saying it takes a national championship, although that will do it. It takes multiple years of knocking on that door.
Yes.
Not 2020.
How many times did you hear Clemsoning?
Right.
Before Clemson finally broke through. And Clemson didn't have to do it in the SEC. So, yeah, it's not a quick fix, but A&M just, they were on their own worst enemy. Gosh, and then I've had people argue with me about it. Well, no, they weren't this way. And I remember they had an assistant line coach, defensive line coach, Bill Johnson. He ended up in the NFL for years.
Right.
Arkansas offers to double his salary. A&M can't match it. Why couldn't A&M match it? So he goes to Arkansas. And now then I think he ended up with the Saints for years. And I mean, a hell of a defensive line coach. A&M couldn't match his salary. Why? Why could A&M back in 94 not matched a salary that Arkansas's offered?
Look,
because A&M wanted to play at the $100 tables with a $100 bill. It doesn't work that way.
You got to play with a little bit more.
And now they do. So it's just a matter of time. But you got to get your coaching situation right. Maybe they did with to Jimbo to put aside some ego and bring in Bobby Petrino.
Yep.
Because it's not about one person. It's not about one coach that says, hey, this is what I've always done. So it's about everybody doing whatever it takes to be successful. And Jimbo made a move to do whatever it takes to be successful.
He did make the move. And look at the company that A&M keeps on this list. They're at 10. Right after them, at number 11, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma will make an investment. In fact, they are making a big investment in upgrading their facilities that were already better than A&M's before A&M upgraded theirs.
Right.
But you know what? Oklahoma still has to, and they have great success in Texas, but they still have to go out of state to get most of their, the majority of their talent.
The other team that was after A&M that I think interesting, because it doesn't mean success, it just means the kind of job. Clemson was at number 12.
Clemson will obviously do whatever it takes. But once again, if you get a really good recruiter in Florida and a great one in Georgia, which you have now, it's going to get harder to get that guy to leave Florida to go to Clemson, South Carolina.
Yeah. And then number 9 in front of A&M, Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think A&M is a better job than Notre Dame. Notre Dame has more national appeal, but the fact of the matter is, Brian Kelly couldn't wait to get out of South Bend. I mean, the word was for 5-6 years he was trying to get out, just couldn't get the right job, and then had the opportunity. Yeah, he's getting out.
You smell some smoke?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, that can't be good.
Maybe they're going to be playing Smoke on the Water back there.
Next door,
we've been hearing
that's not
music.
smoke. That's like plywood, isn't it? Or wood, something like that.
Maybe.
I smell something.
I smell something.
They're building something cool over there.
Yeah. Number one on the list was, if you were to guess.
Number one on the list is probably Georgia.
Georgia's number one on the list, yeah.
You know why? It has everything. You've got fan support. You've got a great campus. You've got a great town. You've got resources, and you're the only. Let's not kid ourselves about Georgia Tech. You're the only major university in the state.
Where do you think Alabama
Major program.
Alabama ended up on the list?
Probably about 4 or 5.
They were number 3.
3, okay.
They were number 3.
Yeah. Did they put Texas too?
I was avoiding 2 on purpose.
Okay,
Yeah,
probably
they
Texas.
did.
And LSU's got to be up there.
LSU is absolutely up there. Let's see if I have it right
And Ohio
here.
State will be up there.
3 was Alabama, 4 LSU, 5 Ohio State, 6 USC, 7 Michigan, 8 Florida, then Notre Dame, then Texas A&M, right at the top 10.
I understand why you'd put USC ahead of A&M, but it really shouldn't be. People in California don't care. People here care, and they care a lot.
It is different. It is different. Let's hit a break. Right now, does your knee pain keep getting worse? I know that once in a while I get these pains and I want them to go away. If your knee pain's getting worse, or maybe that pain in your shoulder or your hip or your back, don't let them tell you that it's steroids, guys, that are going to be your only option. I'm serious about it. There's different ways for you to get healthy and feel like your old self, and that's QC Kinetics as being one of the top ways to make that pain go away with an all-natural advanced regenerative medicine. They're helping people here every day right here in the Bryan College Station area with these amazing natural treatments that restore and repair that damaged tissue. So it's like being young all over again, turning back that clock to make you feel very good. Regenerative medicine uses concentrated healing agents from your own body to stimulate that damaged tissue in your joints so they can work like they're supposed to, and there is zero downtime. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in this exciting medical breakthrough. Patients here in the Bryan College Station area are getting real lasting relief and are saying no to surgery and no to drugs out there. So if you got that pain in your hip or your thigh or your back, wherever it may be, or if you maybe have some arthritis, this remarkable option is what you need to check out. And the consultation is absolutely free. Call them up, 979-452-6000. QC Kinetics, 979-452-6000. That is 979-452-6000. I'm waiting to hear George.
He's in Manning to say down in Louisiana. Buy who's buying by.
What's the chorus is where he uses his auto tune.
Okay. I was
Like
going to say, it
stars
sounded
on
pretty
the
normal
water.
there.
It's like stars on the water. Like stars on the water. Let it rain.
Is it going to be a while? We're going to be waiting a while?
Oh no, right here.
Here it comes.
Listen.
And when
Wow.
the crowd starts rolling in, pretty soon you've got.
Oh, yeah, I do hear it. Oh, I don't like it. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Obi, I did want to respond to somebody, 210 on the chat. Says, Nuño, your kids are watching way worse when you're not around. No, they're not. No, they're not. I mean, I'm not saying they won't. Not yet. We haven't hit that door just yet. That I can guarantee. There's monitoring ways.
I never had daughters. When Quinn was 15, I was pretty lax about certain things. I figured, the way the boys were talking in high school,
Right.
that if there was some brief nudity, I wasn't going to be too concerned of it anymore.
I wasn't concerned
On a
for
movie,
them.
I saw we watched Revenge of the Nerds, and I'd forgotten there was some of that, but I wasn't going to oh my God, we got to stop it because he's 15. I know how boys are talking in high school.
Right. Anyway, let's get to some text messages there. Kay Nagley at the News and Social Center.
Let's do it. Jeff in Texas, going off of Olin's little rant, he says, "Preach it, Olin. A&M has averaged 8 wins a season over the last 40 years. We need coaching stability and leadership with vision."
8 wins a year.
Yeah, that's very mediocre.
Yep.
In some years they've had pockets of success, and other years they've underachieved. But this program should be better. You have to demand that it's better.
Yeah, and you have to hope that they figure it out. That last year, like seriously, if last year is just a brief blip, and how can you say it's a brief blip after the 8-4 year the year prior? But if it's just a brief blip of where you're headed, all right. But if this is still the norm in 2 years, then we've got major issues.
Well, I think what's happening is A&M builds a good season, and then falls apart, builds a good season. It needs to be good season, transition year, good season, transition year, right? And
But transition year should be 9-3.
your transmission or 8-4. I mean, I can deal with an 8-win season if it comes like every 3 or 4 years. When you have the kind of
you want to reverse that pyramid, right?
When you have the kind of advantages and resources and all the things that A&M provides.
And especially with some newcomers coming in, let them be the 8-4s and the
Yes.
7-5s, and you beef up on them.
You know what'll help them get there though? Getting offensive linemen like the kid from Washington that committed.
Papa?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, after what I saw last year, I get excited about any nationally ranked offensive lineman that is going to come to A&M.
Papa Fua. We'll talk about him with Billy here in a little bit, in about an hour and 5 minutes
that
or
long.
so.
He's sleeping in late today, huh?
Well, he likes to get in there. No, he's up. I'm hearing from him. He's working the phones, doing board meetings with people. He's busy.
Okay.
All right, OB. So we agree that top 10 job, and maybe even a little bit higher on that list potentially, and that they'll probably come in somewhere at 22, 23, 24.
Yeah, somewhere in the 20s.
Yeah. All right, bro. Thank you for coming in.
You bet.
All right, hour number 2 on the program. Brandon Leone. Now, I know Nick talked to him recently. I haven't talked to Brandon in a minute, so we'll talk to Brandon. We'll talk to Tom Hart. We'll also go through a prediction of bowl games for A&M that I read on CBS Sports. Then Billy will be with us there in the 10 o'clock hours. Lots of stuff. 10 o'clock hours. 10 o'clock hour. We got a lot to get into with him. It's TexAgs Radio. And we're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the hotline and talk with a young man that I think he's had a rough few months. That's what I'm saying. Like, he gets injured, he doesn't feel good, but he's got a big old smile on his face right now. Brandon Leone. Brandon, what's up, man?
What's up, Nuño? Good to see you. Thanks for the grace last week, man.
Of course, man. How you feel?
So much better.
Yeah.
It has been a rough few months, man. We had our third baby on July 6th. Coming out of the hospital, my wife had a strep,
No.
a thing called thrush. She had an ear infection and a sinus infection. So she was sick the first 2 weeks we were home. Then right after she got better, my son got COVID. And then right after my son got better, I got COVID last week, and it was tough. So was laid up pretty good Thursday and Friday in a little fetal position.
Is that right?
Her to take care of me. Oh man, the first 2 times I had it, it was nothing. This time it absolutely feasted on me, dude. I was like, this is it. This is how I go out.
I was thinking about, like, I remember when I got COVID back in, I guess it was 2020. Like, that took me out. But I hadn't had anything since. So I'm like, I beat it, and it's still there, huh?
It's still there, bro. I guess it's ramping back up. But it's not anything like what it was, But we're feeling better. Everybody's happy and healthy this week, and we're ready for the first full week of school for baby girl and getting back to a rhythm at work. So all is well, man.
Congratulations on the newborn, by the way. That's wonderful news. I should have reached out to you earlier. That's awesome news.
Oh, stop. Don't worry about that. Thank you, Nuño.
Hey, let's talk excitement level. Like, where are you with the season right around the corner? Everybody thinks their team's going to be great. I have some pretty high expectations. Where are you when it comes to this team?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I from all the little bit, I mean, literally, I just started tuning in a little bit as fall camp started up. I think the first thing that I really watched was Petrino's full press conference, just because I kind of wanted to get a feel for him, and I thought he did a great job. It made me really excited. It also made me excited to hear the players speak of, and how you and OB and Billy just covering practice here, and how he's been working a lot with the quarterbacks. And so it seems like, all these questions and everything that everybody had over the summer, is he going to be able to do his thing? It seems like what he was brought here to do, he's going to be able to do. And so that gives me optimism. I think the returning production and talent on both sides of the ball in the 2 deep gives me reason for optimism. And then there's the same thing, kind of really, I think the question marks at linebacker and depth and experience have me a little nervous. We'll see what's up with corner. But other than that, man, and then O-line, obviously, I think is always the question mark for me each year. But I'm excited, man. I really am. I've been so busy at work. I haven't been as dialed in probably as usual, but I'm getting there now. We're close. I mean, it's right around the corner.
Do you remember one of your years at A&M where the offensive line struggled, and then there was a huge jump the next year with not that many changes in personnel? Did that ever happen while you were here?
Yeah, I would say my senior year, 06, when we lost those 3 games by like a total of 6 points in a matter of like a total of 40 seconds. We went to the Holiday Bowl that year. We returned almost all the same guys, and the year before we didn't even make a bowl game. And so, it can happen. I think when you have a lot of real young talent, sometimes they just gel. Sometimes the amount of times they're in the battle together, the amount of times they adjust the blitzes, the amount of film they watch, multiple off seasons together, I think. And honestly, there's probably more top end talent just based on recruiting now than there was when I was there. But we did have some really talented guys. Not to take away from them for sure. But man, I just think that everything is there in order for them to be able to put a productive offense on the field. I mean, it's time.
Brandon, so what questions has A&M answered for you in particular? Like, are there questions that this offseason and you're like, you know what, I had these questions coming into it, but I feel better now after reading or knowing this has happened?
Yeah, the first one I just talked about, I think, with Petrino. Now, granted, there's not been a real game yet, but just, based on what you see, what you hearing the players speak that way, it shows you that that's what's happening. I mean, there's no such thing as players being coached to what to say in college interviews. I mean, they just say what they say, and so when these kids come in there, a lot of them, maybe it's their first couple interviews, they're just raw. And so for them to be speaking like, hey, Jimbo, or, you know, Bobby's been in there with the quarterbacks the most. He's been, you know, people been saying that at practice. So I think that excites me. Again, this is not a negative thing towards Jimbo. I think this was just the next step. I think everybody wanted to see in order for this thing to take the next step. And so I'm really excited to see what this program can do when Jimbo can kind of zoom out a little bit, focus on everything else, and let someone come in that's a proven qualified play caller. So I think that's a question that's just, at least up to this point, been answered. I think the wide receiver room, I think they did a really good job addressing that. I think that's by far our most talented unit. And in today's day and age, and the way the game is now, and with who our OC is, that's exciting. And then I think quarterback, I think you got to feel confident whichever direction they go between Connor and Max. I think you're going to have someone that's going to be good enough to go and win a lot of football games. So it's going to be like Petrino said, who makes the guys better around him, who proves to be the better leader, and really who can kind of change the game. I mean, it all goes back to the play of the quarterback. And I mean, you look at our best seasons probably since we've been in the SEC, and the seasons that stand out had really good quarterback play. And you know, obviously Johnny being the best was our best quarterback we've had, and so I don't think that's any surprise.
Talking to Brandon Leone here, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. All right, so what questions does A&M still have to answer for you, though? Like, so they've answered some, but there's others. I need to see this or that.
Can they get pressure on the quarterback consistently with this new defense? Can they stop the run, you know, in the SEC consistently? And so I think those two things are critical. And then really, do we have guys that can go be on an island and cover receivers for 3 to 4 seconds, you know, so consistently. And again, that's the same questions everybody's trying to answer. But for me, based on what happened to us last year, you know, when you go Ole Miss and you give up, what was it? I mean, you're the stat king. Wasn't it over 300 yards
390 yards rushing. Yeah.
It was insanity. I remember just how sad we were after that game. But I think that's it, is can you stop the run, man? Can you get physical enough? Can these linebackers fill their gaps? Because I know what we got up front is good enough. And so, yeah, can Durkin and this defense slow down a powerful SEC team that just decides to impose their will on you? Can you not let things like App State happen to you again? You know, those are some of the questions. And then the other one is the running back room. Who's gonna end up being the main guy? I think it's gonna be a committee-ish this year, but someone's got to separate themselves and be the guy that Petrino can trust, you know, 70% of the time. I think you need someone to take that spot.
Brandon, I'm hearing you speak about some of the questions you have, and I'm like, man, that sounds very similar to the thoughts I had the other day. I did a whole segment on questions, and the way I entered the conversation was, yeah, of course we all have some questions about the offense, but I feel really good about the offense because of the necessary changes. There weren't as many changes on defense. I'm just expecting for a health and growth.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my questions were on the defensive side, even though the defense was in better shape than the offense was, other than the rushing and getting to the quarterback.
No question. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we talked about this last year. The offense had its faults, and there were days and games when it just was non-existent. But the days that it seemed like it was existent, the defense just got gutted. And that's kind of been the tale of time with A&M, right, is can we get both units on the same page for 12 games to put together a good season? It's like we'll go score 40 points, but then we'll give up 45. You know, we'll go, you know, hold a team to 10 points, but then we only score 7. You know, it's like, and so can we as a unit, you know, as a team, can we build off of each other's good drives and have the mental toughness as a team to recover from the bad ones? You know, if the offense has a 3 and out and the defense gives up a score right back, can the offense go respond? You know, can they stop momentum, stop the bleeding, get back in the game, slow down? Been watching that quarterback documentary actually with Carly Joe at night, and it's been really cool to see. You know, he's kind of corny, but you just can't help but respect and like Kirk Cousins. I think just his toughness and the way that he has kind of weathered those storms. I haven't finished it. I don't even know how the Vikings finished last year. I don't really follow pro anymore. But, you know, to see him lead them to 8-1, to go into Buffalo and be down and just respond, and just he was the most hit quarterback in the league, but they always found a way to answer. And then when he did he was like, man, I gave it all I had, and it seemed like they were about to lose. The defense steps up and gets a pick to win the game in Buffalo. And so can our team, come together, build off of each other, and be consistent enough to utilize this talent that Jimbo and this staff has brought in? Because there's talent on this team. We all know it.
Brandon, speaking of that quarterback show, what I think I like about it is I'm invested in these players now. Like, I like Kirk Cousins.
100%.
I didn't dislike him before, but I didn't, he's whatever. Marcus
Yeah.
Mariota, there's a likability there. And I'll be very honest with you. Like, when you look at Patrick Mahomes, he's kind of dorky too at times, but he came across really likable, and I love the way he goes about his work. That show did it kind of reminds me of what Hard Knocks has been able to do, what those HBO boxing series would have you believe. Like, once you know their story, they become a lot more likable.
Yeah. Well, and it becomes, I think you get to be, I think the reason that those shows are successful and the reason I like them is you get to almost experience what they experience.
Yeah.
Like, did you know that, most people watch an NFL game and they think guys just show up and get out there and go play. Well, Kirk Cousins has a body coach, coming over and working his muscles out all week long. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has hired a guy, to come and specifically train him a certain way, and then finding out about his spine and his mobility and like the fact that he can swing as fast this way, 3% away. I mean, like, you could see, it makes sense why he can do all the unique things that Marcus Mariota has a chef, because he's not disciplined. And that's my story. If I was rich, I'd have a chef, and
Right.
I'd probably look like you. And
Oh, buddy.
it's you get to know, and that's why I like the show that A&M does. That's why I love what is our show called? I can't believe it's blowing my. What's our show that A&M does during the year?
Nick,
Pulse.
The Pulse.
Thank you. Yeah, the Pulse is fun.
The
'cause
Pulse
you
is a
feel like
great
you're in-
watch.
It's a great watch. They do a phenomenal job. You feel like you're in there with the team. So yeah, that's why I like those shows. But
And,
yeah, defense.
every once in a while, either Olin, Billy, myself, they'll do a little pan into the press conference. Every once in a while, they're like,
Oh yeah,
little TexAgs love there.
there's the kid. Yeah.
Right.
Speaking of TexAgs love, y'all got a lot of love on the old documentary. That was cool to see.
Wasn't that great to
was-
see?
That was.
It was at the very end. Obviously Billy was all over it. He was, I would say, the co-main star of it. But at the very end, they gave a little shout out to TexAgs, which was great. What'd you think of it, by the way?
I loved it, man. It was raw. I appreciated, the one thing that I appreciate from people the most is just when they could just be authentically themselves. And, to say what you want to say about Johnny, he is who he is, and he's unashamedly himself. I'm so thankful, genuinely, as a human being, as an Aggie, as a friend, that Johnny is okay, that he's doing well. I lost my mom to substance abuse. She was bipolar. I've seen that struggle and the toll that it takes. And that was just my mom, a single mom. This was not a woman that was the most popular person on the planet, with pressure coming and money coming from everywhere. And so I genuinely cannot imagine, what he went through. And it's easy to sit back and say, oh, he had all the things he wanted. Well, there's a quote that stands out on there. If you paid attention to it, I stopped it and showed it to my daughter. When I had every single thing that I wanted, it was the most empty that I ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And so more often than not, we believe that these things we put in front of ourselves are going to satisfy us and fulfill us. And you get them and you realize, for what? And no, that's not always the case, but sometimes we settle for things that aren't really meant to fulfill us. So I think it's really cool to see Johnny in a better place. It seems like he's in a really good headspace as a young man. And as Aggies, how can you not be happy that he's here and that he's doing well?
Brandon, you mentioned that, and this is going to be a terrible comparison, but follow me here. Yesterday, I had a day of soccer in the morning, right? Then my wife wanted to take the kids in Houston school shopping, which to me, I'd rather watch paint dry than do that, right?
Correct.
And of course, whatever she says, I love her. Hey, babe, love you. Whatever she says, add 2 hours to that time. We'll be done by 1:30. It'll be quick. 3:30, we're still in there, and I didn't complain. I wanted to, but I didn't. And you know what? I was happy. Like, we're all together. We're like, even though it was nothing that I wanted to do, we were all together. Like, and I think that statement that you pointed out about Johnny is the truth. It's not about the success that makes you happy. Sure, there's some happiness in there, but it's what makes you whole. And for Johnny, I hope he finds that.
Yeah, 100%, man. I hope so too. What it did, the feelings that it brought to me was maybe the most nostalgic thing I've watched in a long time.
Yeah.
That was such a fun year for anybody that was an Aggie. It was just such a good time. And not only him, man, like all those guys like Swope and Sean Porter and, Mike Evans and some of these guys that are such great guys. Just seeing that success that they all had together it was a blast, man. That was a fun. We hope we can recreate it, man. That's what gets me excited is to get back to that place because you could see Aggies just went nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, Petrino talks about feed the studs. That's how I feel about our fans, man. Like, give us wins, bro.
Feed the
We will
fans.
go crazy. Feed the fans. We will go crazy. We will fill that stadium up and tailgate for weeks. So
Hey, but
yeah,
you hit on
it's exciting.
You hit on a true point though. Like in a world of sports where I don't think there's still the same passion that there was maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, there is absolutely that passion in this community. This is still like social media doesn't get in the way. Being able to stream stuff doesn't get in the way. Kyle Field is rocking, and when it's rocking, there's no place like it.
There's not. And I've played in a lot of them. Obviously I wasn't in the SEC, but I've played in some of the best stadiums in the country, some pro stadiums, the original Cotton Bowl. When it's popping, there's nothing like the 12th man at Kyle Field. It's just, it's you cannot recreate it. It's just not possible. It's so special.
Brandon, let's navigate through the season. When do you think we'll know who A&M really is? And I guess I'll preface it like this. 2020, we didn't know who A&M was after Vandy, even though they started against Vandy. We really didn't know after Alabama. It took some time to be like, oh, this is who we are. And I'm not saying it takes a loss, a punch in the throat, but at what point when you look at that schedule, like, all right, this is the team that A&M is going to be this year. And by the way, teams can evolve as the season goes on. There's no finals, but like what we expect from them, when do you think, it's matched what we expect?
I think I think I talked about this briefly earlier this year, and I think I said Auburn, just because of Hugh Freeze and all that, the way that game went last year, but I think now it's after Arkansas.
Yeah.
You got to test in Miami that second week of the year, which I'm going to that, by the way. Are you going
to Miami? You asking
Mhm.
me, Mr. Miami? Am I going to Miami?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to Miami a day early, bro.
Oh, correct. I'll be there Thursday, so we need to connect.
Oh, we are partying until 10 p.m. in Miami. We're doing it.
That's it. Oh, bro, if we make it to 10:15, it's a crazy night.
Oh, actually, wait.
Yeah,
it'll be 11:15, Brandon, because it's Eastern, so we're good.
That's true. We'll be tired. I'll need a coffee then. Yeah, so Miami, I think, is going to be a good test, but it's second week. It's first road game. You're still trying to figure a lot of things out. Auburn is first conference test, and then Arkansas is another neutral. And I think by that time you'll have 3, Power 5 games, 2 conference games. I think we'll really know. Probably have a couple of injuries in there. See how we adjust, see some depth come up and how they do. But I think by the time Alabama arrives, we'll know. Do we have a shot for real? Like if we're 5-0, and like okay, and then maybe Alabama proves to us we still didn't know. But I think I will feel confident by the time Alabama's here how the season's going to play out, genuinely, because that's 3 pretty good tests.
Do you have to be
Alabama.
undefeated at that point to feel good?
For me, yeah. I mean, for the way the rest of the season's going to go, because then after that, you go Tennessee, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. If you're 4-1 going into Bama, I don't know. I feel like you got to get to the point where you beat the Auburn, you beat the Arkansas, you're beating the Miamis. I mean, if you want, this team is expected to win. Jimbo was brought here not to go 8-4. Jimbo was brought here to go 11-1, 10-2, 12-0. So I think the time is now, man.
Well,
honestly.
Brandon, look, I of course I want to beat the Tennessees and the Alabamas, and we'll see if they're expected to win those games as we get closer to that. But if you just win the games you're supposed to, and I think you're supposed to win at least 9 of them, right? Like the games that you're supposed to win, you sweep that Mississippi series, you take care of Auburn on a year where they have transition. Yeah, you've beaten KJ before. Let's do it again, right? Like if you can take care of the games that you're supposed to win, I'm going to feel really good about the year.
Yeah, no, I agree. We had a tough year last year. I think it's just people are getting impatient, which is a normal thing in today's world in sports, But what are we? I could be crazy here. Is this 6? Is this year 6 or year 7?
We're entering year 6.
Entering year 6. Yeah, man. I mean, to me, I think it's time to pay the piper, man. It's time to go and produce. You know, it's you return the most production in the SEC. You have a super talented two deep. Credit to Jimbo and the staff. I think they did a great job navigating the portal. You know, when it was all said and done, I really think they brought in some great additions. So, I mean, there's talent there, there's experience there. The coaching staff has remained, you know, the same, obviously, minus a couple things that happened that were very unfortunate. But I think that um, I don't know. I agree with you. You know how when the season begins, typically coaches come in there and there's like this thing where you can color. It's like, all right, you know, protect Kyle Field, you know, win on the road. Like the thing to me, especially since we've been in the SEC, that drives me crazy. You said it, beat the Mississippi schools. Like that should be on the lowest part of it, but that should be a litmus test every year. How are we going to beat? We need to beat the Mississippi schools. Like we should be to a point as a program that we can beat the Mississippi schools. And then after that, right, it's you know beat the Alabama schools. You
Yeah.
know, and then it's protect Kyle Field, don't lose a game at home. And then it's win every game on the road. Then it's win the you know build that. I think that your foundation's got to be win every non-conference game, beat the Mississippi schools, and then build from there.
Brandon, I got one last one for you. We're going long, but I got one more for you. Since you've played the position before, what kind of packages do you see Petrino, who we've seen Ainias in different roles before, but how do you think that he's going to use Ainias this year?
You know, that's what's exciting to see is Petrino's, you know, kind of grew up West Coast offense, you know, but he's kind of adapted over time, depending upon too who his quarterback was. You know, if you go back and watch Arkansas, you go back and watch Louisville, he's always done a really good job with RPOs, making it easy on the quarterback. But I mean, his thing, to feed the studs, that's a great question because I love Ainias. Ainias has done nothing but prove himself right as a talented player. He's made great plays for us, but you start to look at the receiver unit and it's like, okay, yeah, I want to feed Ainias, but I also want to feed Evan Stewart. I also want to feed Moose Muhammad. I also want to feed Noah Thomas. And so I think with the questions at running back, I think you could see some old school kind of Percy Harvin type stuff, right? Line him up out at the slot, motion him into the backfield, you know, do some RPOs, play action where he's coming up out of the backfield, doing a wheel, getting out into the flat. I love that he goes against the grain a lot with his players. Like he'll roll this way and have slants. He tries to get people in open field to create plays. And so whatever he does, whether it's at the slot, outside, in the backfield as an H-back, just get Ainias in open space and let him work. You know, I think and Petrino knows way better than me how to do that. And hopefully he can create some systems and some plays. Like he said, I've never just called a play because I like to play. I've called a play to get the ball in the hands of my guys. And so Ainias is a guy that he deserves his fair share of touches, and I'm excited to see how he does it.
Post-game wrap real soon, brother. You ready?
I'm so ready. I'm excited.
All right, man. I appreciate your time. We'll do it in Miami. We'll do it here at Kyle Field. We'll do it big. All right? Thanks for your time.
All right. See you guys.
Rain Leone here on the hotline. Let's hit a break. We'll come back with around Aggie Land, moving it up a bit early because Tom Hart's going to join us at 9:45. Right now, we're talking about the Charge Apparel, Aggie-owned, purpose-driven apparel brand. The clothes are awesome. If you haven't checked them out, you should. Like the polos, they fit so nice. Premier fabric, lightweight, slightly tailored fit to fit you perfectly through the chest and the arms, designed to make you look and feel your yeah, you know what I'm saying, your best out there. The Charge Apparel, a Texas-based company that operates out of Austin. Although they're behind enemy lines, they're so maroon, and you just got to go check them out. College Station, both owners graduated from A&M in 2014. Upon graduating from A&M, Tucker was commissioned to the U.S. Army. Travis commissioned into the Air Force. After separating from the military, they formed the Charge Apparel as a way to continue to serve our country through veteran nonprofits that they support. And the 12% of the total sales, not just for profits, are donated to veteran nonprofit partners with a focus on mental health initiatives. A note to the 12th man, the Charge Apparel stands in support of our servicemen and women by donating 12% of their total sales to organizations that support U.S. veterans and mental health initiatives. It is the Charge Apparel. Check them out at thechargeapparel.com or find them on Instagram, The Charge Apparel, or on Twitter, The Charge Brand. And we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Got Kay Nagley around Aggieland about to happen. What's up, Kay?
How? Howdy.
What?
I meant to
What was
say
that?
howdy.
How?
My
How?
brain did not finish my sentence. How? How are you?
Jason Howell, great analyst, does amazing work. Around Aggieland is presented by Normandy State Bank. Normandy State Bank, rock solid banking. Website, normandystatebank.com. Do you like the music next door at the concert we're getting?
Yeah, it's a little distracting, I may say.
It only is
just
during the breaks,
bass.
right?
Yeah, like, because we have our ears in and whatnot. Like, I would say, but yeah, the beat is heavy.
A little disrespectful.
Yeah, just
a little disrespectful. Like, you know what? Nobody else is working today. That's all right.
It's fine.
They can't hear it on the radio. They don't care that we're complaining.
It's whatever.
Anyway, what's going on in around Aggieland?
Yeah, so quite a bunch. I'm sure everyone has noticed traffic has ramped up around College Station. So students are officially back as we start school on the 21st.
I noticed it Friday afternoon. That's when I noticed
Okay.
it. I didn't feel it before. I get here early. So
Yeah.
Friday afternoon on my way home, I'm like, whoa, this usually goes way faster.
Yeah, I noticed it this morning coming here too as well.
Yeah.
I was like, man, there's a lot more cars on the road than we're used to seeing in the summer. But with that being said, football is just 19 days away. I know we're all super excited. Also wanted to get into some Aggies that are in the NFL preseason and what they're doing. So Antonio Johnson, making his rookie debut, led the Jags in tackles with 8 tackles, and he had 5 solo. Isaiah Spiller had 5 carries for 27 yards and 2 receptions for 11 yards. He also had a 71-yard touchdown called back. Wish that obviously could have gone in his favor, but seems like he's been killing it over there. Devon Achane had 104 yards total on 15 touches, and then 41 receiving yards, 25 rushing yards, and a 38-yard kick return. So that's awesome.
Love that.
Kellen Mond, QB, went for 7 for 12 with 79 yards and 1 touchdown. Also had 3 rushes for 16 yards. Jay Sternberger, back in the NFL, he had 1 reception for 17 yards. Buddy Johnson had 2 tackles for the Bears, and then Christian Kirk had 2 receptions for 12 yards and 1 touchdown. So, I mean, talk about a list of names. They're killing it.
They are killing it. We are going to have actual a report from Luke Evangelist tomorrow on that, a little deeper dive into some of those numbers. So that is excellent stuff there, Kay. What else do we have?
We had some recruiting news over the weekend.
Papa!
So, heck yeah. So, A&M has added another feature. Maroon Goon is 2024 Seattle Odeya offensive lineman Asindre Papa Afua has given his verbal pledge to Jimbo Fisher and Steve Adazio. With him, Adazio obviously led the recruiting efforts. He becomes A&M's 4th offensive line commitment to join the 2024 class. So great pickup. I know we're always excited when we got some recruiting news going on.
Absolutely.
Women's basketball legend Gary Blair was enshrined into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame on Saturday night, a part of the historic 2023 class. Just some names that he was up there with. Obviously, Gary Blair, Dirk Nowitzki, Tony Parker, Greg Popovich, Dwayne Wade. I mean, talk about
what a class.
Talk about a list of names that you're next to, and obviously Gary Blair.
And
What a
GB.
legend.
Yeah.
Especially at Texas A&M. I know we all love him. Some soccer news. 4 different A&M had 4 different goal scorers as they combined for a 4-0 win over Texas State in the exhibition match on Friday night. That will complete their preseason slate, and the Aggies will now turn their attention to an August 17th season opener versus Florida State. So, getting exciting.
Is that a 6 o'clock start on that one?
May have to double check on that.
No worries.
And then volleyball getting kicked off as well this week. The Jamie Morrison era will begin on Wednesday with the maroon and white scrimmage at 6:30 p.m. at Reed Arena. I know a lot of people are excited to see what Mr. Jamie Morrison has cooking up over there. Should be a good year.
Awesome stuff, Kay. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Kay Nagley there with Around Aggieland, presented by Normandy State Bank. We'll come back. Nick's going to kind of update us on some changes we're doing on the YouTube side of things. Also, I'm going to ask you guys, and Kay, think about this, and Nick, think about this question. And I want the texters to think about it, 979-693-1150. Is there a team, I don't know why, do you see how I did this with my hands? Is there a team, I'm like, is there a team that in 2022 had a similar narrative to Texas A&M? Because that team might be who CBS is predicting for A&M to play in a bowl game. Now, I'll preface it with this. They didn't have the exact, nobody's going to have the exact kind of scenario, but there was a lot of similarities between the two teams, and we'll talk about that. So who is that team in your eyes? And don't go Google, don't cheat. Yeah, who the
prediction's
ball?
gonna
Like,
be, yeah.
don't do that. We'll and Nick's cheating right now. I can see it happening. All right, let's talk about Heritage Films right now. Chance McClain's company, good buddy of mine. I've told you that for a long time. He's just a dear friend, and I will. This has kind of been my standard practice. I try not to do any business with friends because I think it always ends up like not working out. Like, you don't buy a car from a buddy. Like, you can, but like it can open up a lot of can of worms that I don't want to open up. It's different with Chance McClain and what he does there with what can't I just say Chance with Chance in Heritage Films, right? Because he's doing a service for people, right? This is not a business; it's a service with these documentary films about families, about family ranches, about family businesses, about just your uncle, your grandfather, your dad, the patriarch of the family, your mom, like who is. There's people in your family that story needs to be captured and told. And you don't want a day to pass where that story isn't really captured. If they're not writing it down and telling their life story and really having that family tree all together organized with those thoughts, you don't want it to go away because you're not promised tomorrow, right? We were fortunate to do one on my father, Heritage Films, a 2-hour documentary. That was awesome. We also did a year flicks on my daughter, Annalise, which is these benchmark videos that tell her story in a real easy, kid-friendly Q&A style with the green screen in the background and these awesome questions. They're just both options are phenomenal for any family out there listening to this show. And Aggies are his #1 client. I mean, because the Aggies love their story, right? Other places, they like their story. Aggies, we care about our story much, much more. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. feel like I've been to your house before, Tom. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go straight to the hotline. Tom Hart. Tom, last week had us in his studio, his home studio. I love your backyard. You got a nice house, man.
You want the full tour?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, I've gone with you to a drive-through. I forget where you were at a drive-through, but I've done that with you.
Yeah, they could have been the
coffee, maybe.
They could have been the Popeyes outside of Fort Worth that didn't have any paper products. Yeah, I was like, hey, can I get some extra napkins? And the guy's like, extra napkins? You don't have any napkins. I'm like, really? You don't have any paper towels? He's like, man, we don't have any paper products in this entire store.
Wow.
So, yeah.
How was your
weekend?
But it was
all worth it. That chicken sandwich is pretty good.
I love a Popeyes chicken sandwich. It's been a minute, but people are in the back like, you haven't had one. Yes, I have had a Popeyes chicken sandwich.
Even the thought of it makes you cringe.
No,
the mayonnaise and the cheese, and fried food.
There was a time I could get away with that, right? I'm just not in my 40s. I can't. Like I can't pull it off anymore.
You can get away with it. You just have to, convince yourself that you'd rather be happy.
I am very happy. As my good friend Jocko Willick says, discipline equals freedom, all right?
There you go. I wouldn't know anything about that. I'm the most undisciplined person you know.
No, I doubt that, man. So, couple things, man. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on in college football right now, but I want to ask you about this Jim Harbaugh situation. I know it's not SEC related, but it's just another example of the NCAA just, the power's over here. It's really not there.
Okay. Well, I had a baseball game this weekend, so I was in Philly, so I was kind of in MLB mode and not at all in college football mode. And I saw the headline, but I didn't read the story. The Committee on Infractions basically came out and said, you guys don't have the jurisdiction to negotiate with him.
Correct.
Essentially.
Yep. And now he's going to coach all year.
Well, here's the problem the NCAA has gotten itself into. And I equate the Harbaugh situation to what's going on with the heavy-handed approach to second-time transfers and their eligibility. We've seen it a North Carolina wide receiver. We've seen it, I think it's a D lineman at Florida State. The NCAA doesn't have much grace. Like, the people who are critical of them don't have much grace. So even when they rule things in a proper manner, but seemingly heavy-handed, everyone goes, the NCAA is terrible. I don't know what's right and wrong with Harbaugh. I haven't read the entire investigation. It seems to me, from what I understand, is he broke a very minor rule, but then he chose to lie about it multiple times. And you can't have an enforcement committee that can put up with coaches just lying to them when they're trying to investigate them. So there needs to be, if there's no punishment to your rules, if there's no enforcement, then you don't have any rules. Then your entire society is chaos. So, but the problem with the NCAA is because they've been so heavy-handed and ham-handed in the past that they don't get the benefit of the doubt, even if this might be the right scenario. Telling those kids they have to sit out a year at North Carolina, Florida State might be the right way to do it, but we don't give them the benefit of the doubt because of all the missteps they've had in the past.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio. Do you see a world, and it feels like a movie trailer there. Do you see
in a
world where there's do you see a group of 5 playoff and a Power 4 playoff, like 2 different types of playoffs in college football? I got one.
No, maybe eventually. Sorry, you probably thought I was frozen. Maybe eventually. When we talk through these scenarios and hypotheticals, I try to find a parallel. And to me, the parallel is, and what would happen first, most likely, would be the basketball split. And that the Power 4 says, why are we giving spots to nickels? And why are we giving spots to, Maryland Eastern Shore? People watch us. The money should come to us. And so we're going to consolidate. We're going to have our own NCAA basketball tournament for the Power 4. The problem with that, and maybe this doesn't apply apples to apples with football, but the problem with that is, well, then you need your own system. Like, once again, everyone hates rules. You hate rules until you want them enforced on somebody else. And you go, well, hold on a second. We can't run this way. We can't have chaos. So the work that it would take to get a brand new NCAA basketball tournament up and running is mammoth. I would think the work it would take to do a split on the football side, even though the NCAA doesn't run college football postseason, I think that's more trouble than it's worth right now. David, what will likely happen is it will kind of be funneled into a Power Four only, because the scheduling is going to get to a point in major sports, not just football, but also basketball, where the little guy isn't going to be able to get these games on the schedule. They got no chance. And so they're just going to probably what's going to happen is they'll just kind of be weeded out because they'll get pushed out. There won't be any space.
All right. So to follow up with that, it feels like the Pac-12 won't make it, obviously, with the lack of teams that they have, unless they have some Hail Mary that I don't know about. The ACC has the grind and rights deal, so it looks like they can survive this. But can they, if there's these lawyers looking at every little hurdle that they can get out of, or what a little loophole they can try to put in there? So are we going to get a group of 3 at some point, or do you think the ACC can survive this?
Well, I think the ACC has 2 things going for it right now. Number one is the timetable. Florida State and the Board of Trustees meetings a week and a half ago kept pointing to August 15th to when they were going to depart so they could be free next year. That's tomorrow. So unless Greg Sankey's sitting there ready to push the nuclear button on the ACC, I don't see that happening. I also don't see. Look what happened with Oregon and Washington when they backed their way into the Big Ten. They came at a reduced rate. Florida State. Let's say Florida State did beg the way into the SEC, and it happened by tomorrow. I don't think they're getting a full share. So what's really the value? Because that grant of rights looks pretty strong for the ACC. And on top of that, if Notre Dame is ever going to join any conference, contractually, it's going to be the ACC. They join any conference for football. That is maybe the only ace the ACC has up their sleeve, is the promise of adding Notre Dame. And if and when you do that, well, then all of a sudden your number guarantees and your TV money goes through the roof.
Tom, talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Radio. Tom, let's talk Florida. Do you buy Graham Mertz at all as the guy? He played at Wisconsin. He's been named the starter there at Florida. I got a lot of questions about Florida. Do you buy him?
I was talking with some folks down in Gainesville the other day, and I said, just kind of give me the lay of the land. And what they keep coming back to is, regardless of who's at quarterback, this is not an SEC roster. It's not at the point where, and granted, they're used to having elite NFL-laden rosters at Florida. I think they need somebody who's going to be steady. I think they need somebody who's not going to make mistakes and turn the ball over. The Anthony Richardson experience the last year and a half, it doesn't seem like it's the most stable way to go about it when there's a lot of other question marks from a personnel standpoint. So I don't know that Graham Mertz is going to set the world on fire, but I think he's probably just what Florida needs right now.
That's a good point. I still struggle thinking of Anthony Richardson as a good pro. I don't know where you are on him, but like, I didn't see enough in college to make me think, oh yeah, that game's going to translate.
No, I agree with you. He's big, he's strong, he's uber athletic, he's got incredible promise. Think of it this way, David, because you follow the NBA. If this were the NBA, nobody would bat an eye. They'd say, well, yes, you go get the best athlete that's projectable, and it can turn into and coach their way into not just a great player, but all-star caliber. Like, you shoot for the moon, and you hit on a couple and you miss on most. I think what's bothersome for me, and I don't know if you feel the same way, is I get a little tired when we get around draft day and players like him are being broken down only on what they've done in t-shirt and shorts, when those of us who have watched them have seen the inconsistency and said to ourselves, man, I wouldn't bet on that one. You know, that is a risky proposition going forward. But it's not our money, right? I mean, but I'm with you. I just don't see that he's going to be consistent enough. Better, more consistent quarterbacks with bigger numbers have washed out of the league really quickly. So I don't know. I'm doubtful like you are.
Well, and Tom, to follow that up, like, how risky is a quarterback anyway? Like, how many work out that are like have all the tools and actually had a good, like, it doesn't work that way. Like, there would be a lot more franchise quarterbacks if that were the case, but that's why teams continue to multiply pick quarterbacks over the years.
Well, what they've learned is it's a value pick, right? Like, just like the value of the running back has gone down, no reason to use a high pick and a lot of money. You're going to churn through those guys, and generally going to be back out on the street. It's worth it to take a risk on I mean, who's the best player in the game that transcends his entire team has won Super Bowls? Patrick Mahomes. There's a lot of inconsistencies in his game coming out of college, a lot. And there was the question of whether or not he was just a system quarterback. I think the caveat to what you're going to do in the opportunity for a guy like Anthony Richardson to be successful is if you hit it on all strides, yeah, he's got the athleticism to be a superstar. And I think that's where the gamble is. Personally, I'd rather have Bryce Young, and he's QB1, and we'll see how he does.
Tom, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, David. Have a great day, bud. Thanks.
You too. Tom Hart, there on the hotline. SEC Network, ESPN, always bringing it. All right, let's hit a break here. We'll come back with more. Right now, we're talking about the Association of Former Students. Brandon Leone was like, I'm going to Miami early. So am I. If you guys want to go out there, you know where to do it, right? Miami's going to be a fun weekend, but the Association of Former Students has got some amazing things going on planned for that weekend. If you want to be at a South Beach hotel with a group of other Aggies while receiving special access to a tailgate and more, look no further than the Traveling Aggies Miami Football Weekend, September 8th through the 10th. Join Aggies in Miami to watch the Aggie football team beat the hell out of the Miami Hurricanes. A 3-day, 2-night weekend package includes hotel accommodations at the Hyatt-centric South Beach, Miami, just steps from a variety of restaurants and bars and entertainment, an evening welcome event and tour, access to the official Traveling Aggies pregame tailgate, and round-trip transportation to the game, and much, much more. The Association of Former Students Traveling Aggies program hosts over 70 trips a year, including cruises, safaris, tours, trains by a wide variety, and other affordable options. To learn more about the Miami Football Weekend, visit tx.ag/MiamiTrip23, or learn more about all the trips hosted by the Traveling Aggies, visit tx.ag/TravelingAggies. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. In the 10 o'clock hour, Billy will be with us. We have a lot to get into with Mr. Lucci, so looking forward to that conversation. All right, I wanted to do this earlier, but then we flip-flopped. We were able to get Tom Hart a little bit earlier. So I asked everybody. I was like, and I will tell you, one of the responses I got was definitely not on point. That being said, all right, I asked you guys to find, like, who's an equivalent in college football that is, equivalent to Texas A&M last season. And again, not necessarily a top 10 team that finishes 5-7, but maybe some of the offensive issues and maybe the defense not being out there. And the reason I asked that question, Kate, did you ever get a comparison?
Couldn't think of one just off the top of my
It's all right.
head.
That's all right. I was thinking of the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Okay.
Because their offense was atrocious. Yeah. Last year, they averaged 18.7 points a game. Right? Their defense is typically better than it was last year. Very similar story. They didn't have a quarterback situation that was very good last year. The reason I bring them up is that's who Jerry Palm of CBS Sports has A&M playing in a bowl game. He has them playing the ReliaQuest Bowl game there at Raymond James Stadium, which last year was the Mississippi State game. But that all being said, they now have Cade McNamara as their quarterback, and he did pretty good for Michigan last year. Obviously, not J.J. McCarthy good, but good enough that folks in Iowa are super excited about what he can do there. He is going to be their guy. They've returned 5 starters on the offensive line. I feel like a similar story. Iowa expected to be a better team last year. Maybe not the trajectory that A&M had, but a team that should have been better. And if they have the kind of year that they're expecting, and A&M has at least the 9-win season that we hope that they can get to, chance that they play there according to Jerry Palm. So just wanted to use those comparisons there. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Billy Lucci next, and much, much more. TexAgs Radio. And we're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Hour number 3. Billy should be joining us here momentarily. A lot of stuff to get into with Billy, so we'll do that here in a few minutes. I'm going to let Nick on the air for a moment. Nick,
Oh, you're going to let me? Thank you. I appreciate that. What's up?
buddy, it's going to be okay. I know you're a little stressed out about stuff. A little stressed.
I'm just messing with you.
Little, I know some of your computers aren't working the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
I was going to allow you to kind of explain some of the changes we are doing. I'm going to ask you to explain a little bit of the changes we're doing on the YouTube side of things.
Well, we found a way to make the YouTube channel, work for us. So we're going to run it all 3 hours now. So you don't have to switch over to TexAgs. You can get the full 3 hours right there on the YouTube page. Our YouTube page been doing great recently. Keep subscribing. We appreciate it. But that's that. And yeah.
So now you'll be able to watch, at least for now, all 3 hours of the show. We've been able to. So if it sounds a little weird, because how we're doing is explain if I'm saying this correctly.
There's basically another channel going to YouTube where you don't get
the music
feed from the radio station, which would demonetize us on YouTube. So that's why we couldn't do it for 3 hours. But now we're gonna try to.
So if you hear no music and know that, now you know why.
We'll figure something out to supplement that as well. It's all just kind of a big work in progress.
Yeah, it is. It is a work in progress. We're still trying to figure things out. So now you have that. So you get us on the CW for a couple hours here locally on television. You get us on the Zone for all 3 hours, and it's an easy way to listen to the show, and I highly recommend that as well. And, of course, for subscribers, TexAgs.com, you get all the bells and whistles on that one, all 3 hours plus much, much more. Be a premium subscriber so you can be a part of all that. So that's kind of what we have set up there on the YouTube side of things as we continue to grow that. So looking forward to that. All right, a couple of topics that we've been getting into this morning. The first one that I think we hit enough was the top 10 job being A&M. We also, a couple moments for Gary Blair in that amazing, not only getting into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, but the folks that he's going in there with, Gary is at that level. The Dirks, the Dwayne Wades, the Greg Popoviches. So congratulations to Gary Blair there. The other thing I wanted to get into, which I don't know if I'm going to have time to get into because I think Billy's here, was you know what? I'll save it because it's a basketball topic, and we've got other stuff to get into. Good morning to my dear friend, esteemed colleague, boss extraordinaire, Billy Lavernia-Salucci. Billy, good morning, sir.
What's up, David?
How are you, sir?
I'm good. I couldn't park.
Yeah, it's a little busy here.
Well, ridiculous. What's going on?
It's a little interesting that you show up and the concert next door has stopped.
Yeah.
It was like a ridiculous concert going on over there. But it stopped for you, so good.
It seems about right. And they just say, hey, let's do that all during the season and not during the off season.
Well,
there's football and content-minded people in this company, and there are those that aren't.
Well, football content-wise, where shall we begin this hour, Billy?
Whatever. I mean, just don't do how'd the week go?
Well, you don't like to have a jump-off point to start a segment? You
No,
want direct.
I don't, because here's the problem. Part of it is it's very vague and ambiguous, and so
I don't know what you did this weekend.
While I'm inclined to go, oh, it's good. It's going really well, and then just leave it. But then you have to say, oh, it went really well or it went really bad, and then you have to go into
what you did.
And then no, I'm talking about football-wise.
Uh-huh.
What I did, it was low-key.
Yeah.
I made my way out of town yesterday just for the day.
Okay.
I did get stopped. If you're listening today, thank you for the shout out during. I got a little documentary shout out. Here you go, Zipper. Oh, I took the key. Zane was parking. Zane comes outside.
Meets you at the car.
Okay, so I got to give him credit because the other day he had his little quip when I was walking in. I went off on the rainbow shoes and everything. Today, I pull up. There's like trucks everywhere. There's no parking. People completely disregard the TexAgs. Well, it says staff and visitor. So again, they've screwed that up. It should just be staff. So I pull up. There's no parking spot, and there's Zane coming out. Hey, do you want me to park so you can get in there? Perfect. So, because I'd still be looking.
Well, it's all good.
So anyway, weekend was good. A&M had their first scrimmage. And the reason why I say don't open-ended because I'll talk for 20 minutes and you'll just sit there and be break. Scrimmage, I'm going to have some there's not a lot of scrimmage, quote-unquote, notes from this one. But the week's worth of practice, there's plenty to talk about. I'll be doing some writing today. But around Jimbo's presser and we got the press conference today. We've got practice in between. Maybe me and you go try to do something active. But I thought also have lunch with a couple of my scouting buddies today that are coming in to watch some of these Aggie seniors. So that'll be interesting feedback there. But
I think I know one in town. Yeah, good times.
you really interesting.
Huh,
I didn't even
interesting.
know you knew anybody
Thank you.
in that world. Who is it? John Harris? We call him a scout now.
Not John.
Zerline.
No, it's another gentleman who is down I-10 the other way.
Okay. I-10 the other way.
Not I-10.
Victoria?
Is it? No, like going towards Georgia, going towards Alabama, going towards Florida. Somebody out there.
Yeah, that's I-10.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway,
I don't want to say the name because
yeah,
I don't know if it's the same
we
name.
don't do that.
No.
But it's not the same. But scrimmage, I think just long story short, at first team defense looked really good. I saw somebody, people are trying to say like it's a banged up, injury ravaged football team right now. It's not true at all. It's stupid. That's a stupid thing to say. That tells me you don't follow fall camp very much as you enter like essentially the third week. They've probably had, I would think, a significant injury, and we'll see if Jimbo talks about it today. I know there's a lot of speculation. We don't do that crap. If there's a request from the coach, which is, I've always said this, if it's unreasonable, then it's unreasonable. If a simple request is, hey, we try not to talk about season, let the coach be the word on anything season ending. I try to do that. It's harder and harder these days because it's just like, oh, this person said this much, so I got to say this much, and they said that much.
People rush to Twitter.
I'm getting messages from friends of mine that cover Texas talking about it, and it's like everybody's DMing you got kids DMing kids now. You got people DMing the parents that are on social media or on TexAgs, and we got people racing to other forums on TexAgs wanting to be the one to say it, but nobody goes, man, there's a reason that the coach wants to do that. And in this instance, if the family is aware and stuff, but it's going to happen one day where something's going to happen at practice and everybody's going to wildfire it. Just like there was a thread that said Evan Stewart injury. And luckily they didn't practice yesterday, or maybe Evan Stewart's parents see that on TexAgs and it's a guy that just someone that doesn't know what they're talking about. And then you get a wannabe expert take it and run to another forum of ours. Say, yeah, it sounds like Evan Stewart's out. In this instance, I saw they were speculating on if a tight end was hurt and who it was. And they're mentioning names of people that weren't hurt. And, their parents on there. They're reading it. Oh, my God, like your parent.
I saw that.
Cruz Nuño goes down at practice, looked like a serious injury. And then you take it into, what if it's an ambulance has to be called?
Right.
It's a neck, so I understand the why of it. And we wonder why practices aren't open and stuff. And
that's why.
That's part of the reason why. Or Cam Dewberry storms out of practice one day, and they make it, or, not storms out, but, that was reported last spring by a lot of outlets. And guys, it's football,
That happens.
I remember the stories like back under Billy Gillespie. If people knew like how many times he not only sent guys out of practice but kicked them off the team and they were back the next day, like it happens a lot in this sport. Their tempers flare. There are fights. There are guys that lead, and like it's not to say you don't need to know how the sausage is made, but there's a reason practices are closed. Do I wish we'd have a little more time out there to see like significant football played? Yeah, that would be nice. But I still think there should be a cutoff. Or you do an open practice like they did for that scrimmage, but you do that a couple, 3 times in August or something, 2 or 3, one time in the spring. I like the idea of we're all out there in the spring one day and AC or somebody, Jimbo, comes up and says, hey, you guys are all welcome to stay the whole practice today, but cameras off, don't report it. I think that would go a long way. But in terms of opening practice or, some, significantly increased access, I think it doesn't play favorably for any program. And I think that's, yes, what's going on right now is an example of such. So I'll be interested to hear Jimbo today and what he says about injuries. But, yeah, there was a thread that said Evan Stewart injury. Evan Stewart's not hurt. And if people look at that, not only his parents but fans, and then you see other schools taking it and run with it because they pretend like, oh, we don't want to see anyone hurt, but every one of them would love to see a guy that didn't pick they're full of it, most of them. Some people have real hearts, but some of them the fan overtakes, and you're like, oh, yes. But no, A&M is not. They've actually had a real healthy camp so far. Look, it's football, and it's August. And, there are going to be real injuries around the country. Almost no one will be immune to that. And guys are going to be banged up. And veteran guys are going to understand how to kind of, in some instances, you're going to kind of, there's a pacing to it. Nobody wants to hear that, but there is. And that, again, that's around the country. They're not banged up. Or they're like, you're hitting that part of camp where guys are starting to have nicks and bruises that keep them out a day here, 2 days there. You get your bell rung, you miss, a week of practice.
Right.
Those things accumulate. I don't consider that being a banged up football team. I consider that being a team going through camp. With that said, A&M had some guys out at safety, and it was none of it significant. But the depth there was challenged, and still, that because they have so much depth there, that first team defense did a really good job in the scrimmage against the second team O. And then, the offense found a little rhythm there, the first team offense. And I think that was started off Connor, and then it was Max. Where the defense, when you go ones versus ones, where the defense, what I heard really shined was actually in red zone stuff, or is he inside the 10-yard line or red zone. And that's ones versus ones, and the defense really stood out, showed out. So that was kind of, I think the main takeaway is your first team defense looked really strong. So there you go.
In that
do with that what you will, and some will say, oh, my God, O-line, oh, my God. Defense is usually ahead of offense at this time of year, number one. Offense has had a good camp so far. Like, people have been encouraged. Spring was a back and forth, which is how it should be. You want it to be back and forth. You don't want it to be
you don't want the offense
dominated.
Yeah.
And you can't just go, well, the defense has an advantage in practice, which they do. But you've heard guys like Dindy and some Bryce Anderson, some other guys come in here and say, man, with Coach Petrino, you don't know what's coming.
Right.
Now, I know Durkin's told some people that, like, man, like it's a nice back and forth right now, and you hope it stays that way. You hope it stays that way.
And one more thing on the injury front, just so people recognize, this is like how it is around. When I covered the Texans, we were not allowed to report at all on any potential injury that we saw.
Yeah.
Because we're not doctors. You don't know, and people would rush.
Oh, if you knew how many times I've seen on our boards or had people that were even at practice that were observers tell me, Nuño's hurt. It looked bad.
ACL, yeah.
It looked bad. And, Bronny did that. Yeah, I'm messing with him because I thought it too, but he did it the other day. We're sitting there at practice, the open practice, and Jade Walker is running a crossing route, and he goes, kind of pulls up, and then he runs all the way to the sideline and goes down. He was in obvious pain. People ran over there to him, and we're all three sitting there, and Bronny's like, that was non-contact. He's done. That's bad. That's bad right there. That's no contact.
He was back at it, though.
That was on air. And 2 plays later, he's back out there.
Yep.
And we're giving him a hard time, but I agreed with him. It did look, you were just like, oh, man. So, yeah, you don't know. Just like you don't know. I was watching one game last year, and Ananias was running down. It was last year. It was the year before. and he got hit. And nobody noticed it, but I was being on the sideline. I heard the hit. I heard the helmets, and I was like, ugh. And then, but he got up and everything was fine. And then he missed like that and the whole next week, or maybe he returned to practice like Friday and almost missed a significant game. Maybe it was, I think it might have been South Carolina or something. He almost missed Auburn or something like, or maybe it was the game before LSU. I think whatever it was, it might have been that weak game before LSU, but whatever it was like, oh man, I don't want him to get hurt because of that play in that game, and he did. So, anywho, they're actually pretty healthy. They're just, you got some attrition, you got fall camp attrition going on right now. So, for those of you that see like when we report on the guys that aren't suited up and practicing, the key thing is how many guys are significantly injured and affected to where it's going to affect the first couple 3 games. And right now, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying guys are going to miss the first game. Guys are going to be out for Miami, just the way that an early season goes. But as of today, if you like asked how many guys are going to miss the Miami game or even the first game, the list might include one player.
Right.
It really might. So they're in good there. The defense looks strong. But I talked to someone this morning. It was really interesting, and they said athletically, and they've been with Jimbo for a long time. Athletically, like this team is the best since, like, say, and I'm talking about measurable just the roster and what they're putting on the field. Probably since 2016 Florida State for Jimbo. Now, I know they won the title in, 13? Right? Yeah, 13 they won it. 14 they runner-up in the playoff. And 17 is where kind of the wheels fell. So I think 16, that was a 10-3 Florida State team. But you got to think about like the talent. You're talking about Dalvin Cook. You're talking about who's a safety for the Chargers. It's so good. Derwin James, Dalvin Cook, the defensive end that was so good. I forget his name too, but like that was a loaded. Remember, so they won it in 13, and 16 is when the recruits off that 13 team are going into their second year.
Right.
They were there. They signed in 14. They were there 15 and 16, like that group. So that's the kind of talent we're talking about. And they do need to stay healthy. We talk about health. And I still come back to, David, to me, it is offensive line and defensive line. I worry about corner. I don't think they're great at corner. I think they have a lot of options. So I will see who steps up. Like, is it DeBerry? Is it Grimes? Is it Chappelle? Like, Chappelle's been good his first 2 years, but he hasn't played at a first-team All-SEC level where you could see that happening with somebody at safety. You could see that happen along the D-line. Hell, I could see it happening on the O-line, a couple of those guys.
Yeah.
Maybe even 3 of them. I'm not saying they're going to have 3, but three have a chance to be that type guy this year. You can see it at receiver. But, I don't see it at corner yet. And my point, though, is I go back to your D-line needs to dominate. And Olin did that interview with Kevin Smith, talking about, corner. And he said, show me a great corner, I'll show you a great D-line or pass rush, whatever it is he said, or vice versa. But so again, I just go back to A&M has to be really good in the trenches this year on both sides. And that means a huge improvement on both, because the D-line still left a lot to be desired last year in some games. Now, there were times, Alabama, they kicked the Crimson Tide's ass up front on the D-line. Fadil Diggs, McKinley Jackson. I thought, LT, Shamar, they kicked their ass in Tuscaloosa up front, the D-line. The O-line, Haynes King got just smoked every time he dropped. That was probably Haynes' most heroic performance. And had they finished it off, it would have been legendary.
It would have.
I mean, he had help, like Evans making incredible catches, and Moose made some clutch. Everybody was like clutching up in that game, but it was heroic the way that dude was playing because I think Will Anderson had, what was it? We looked it up recently. Was it 7 or 8 hurries? It was insane. But their A&M D-line clearly got the best of the Alabama offensive line. And I know, well, Jalen Milroe played. That's the reason A&M almost won. Well, yeah, Bryce Young would have been a lot better. But the Aggies got to Bryce Young 5-6 times at Kyle Field the year before. He gets sacked a lot. They were pressuring the hell out of Jalen Milroe. So, yeah, would Bryce Young have had those turnovers? Probably not. But they were still going to get the pressure on him. It wasn't like Bryce hung on to the football.
Yeah.
And he was smaller. He would have taken some big hits. My point being is pressure is pressure, and A&M was winning in the trenches. And they dominated both lines of scrimmage against LSU. They're going to have to play like that all year. And I'm not saying 12 games of perfection, but they're going to have to be, in my opinion, they should be a top 3 defensive line in the SEC this year. We need to see that. And O-line wise, I think they need to be.
Top 3 in the SEC too, right?
No, I don't.
Top 5?
Yeah, like even top 5 or 6 in the league. And, like a good SEC O-line. I'm not saying that's their ceiling either. But I think
at least
if they're if you had a metric that just could accurately say that A&M line is one of the better ones in the SEC. If you can just say that, so maybe that means top 5 out of 14, top third of the league, then I think this team's a double-digit win football team. I really do, because I think whether it's Connor, Max, with those receivers, with the running back potential, and with the defense, if you say those things about both those sides, they will cover up a lot of the weaknesses on defense by stopping the run. Defensive backs are a lot better in obvious passing downs. Stopping the run and then getting to the quarterback, like winning that line of scrimmage. Yep. You cover up the deficiency. And then on the flip side, offensively, if they play better, not the opposite of covering up the deficiency, you're giving the strengths a chance to shine. You cover up the strengths on offense if you can't block. You cover up the deficiencies on defense if you kick ass in the trenches. And I just said ass like 5 times.
That's all right.
Sorry.
All good. We'll come back. I want to do
problem, I feel like.
23 and 23. We'll get into number 10 there on the list. Bryce Anderson, that and more. But right now we're talking Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. If you are in the market, you need to be looking at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. If you're not in the market yet, I want you to consider them in the future whenever you are ready to get a new vehicle for your family, because that's the place to get great deals, great customer service, and, of course, a great trade-in value for your vehicle. It is Caldwell Country Chevrolet, a great experience throughout the entire thing, before, during, and after the process. If you complimentary pickup for all their service customers, so they'll take great care of you there. I can guarantee that. I've had it done. Billy's had it done. We've all had it done there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. It's not a far drive either. So when you're ready to go and get a great deal, you can start the search online, but then go in person, 15 minutes, Brian Caldwell, a short conversation away, but you're going to see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with our friends there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. And we are back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody listening in. It is when Billy gets back in the studio, we'll do 23 and 23. And that is presented by The Charge Apparel, Aggie-owned and operated premier polos and tees made in the USA. 12% of total sales are donated to organizations supporting veterans and mental health initiatives. You can visit them at thechargeapparel.com or find them on Instagram at thechargeapparel or on Twitter at thechargebrand. Olin and I kind of went into some thoughts on number 10, Bryce Anderson. Dalton Hughes saying hello to me outside the glass. Always appreciate he's going to continue doing it. So I just gave him a thumbs up to make sure that he recognizes that I'm on air. So we did talk about Bryce Anderson earlier, and he does seem like the kind of guy. Does not even seem like this is. I think the bar, as OB said, is set pretty high when it comes to Bryce from the way Antonio played. And what's going on here, Dalton? Did something happen? Oh, Dalton's just walking in the studio. The bar was set high, but the potential for Bryce to eclipse that. Let's go to the News and Social Center. Dalton, is there a situation developing?
Hello, David Nuño. I just saw you floundering without Billy, so I was like, "Oh, I'll give him somebody to talk to."
Yeah, we were going to talk.
Where do
Bryce
you look
Anderson.
in this social center? I don't understand. Is my head parallel right there?
Yeah, you look great, dude.
You know, I've never sat over here. This is the first.
It's your first time to sit there.
Yeah.
You know what I like about the way you sit on that chair?
What do you like about the way I sit in this chair?
Is that how I talk?
What do you like?
I like the headroom. Like, it's perfect. Sometimes some folks are not as tall as others. Sometimes people are too tall. You're the right height for that shot.
Just right. Is that what you're saying?
You're just right, yeah. Hey, you're a basketball fan, right? I know you love Dirk.
I do.
You know my good friend Daryl Morey?
I do know your good friend Daryl Morey. Yeah, what did he do?
He
now?
actually is my buddy. But did you see what happened with James Harden this morning?
I didn't.
He was in China. I think it was in China. Doing a camp. And he said multiple times, I will never play for that liar, Daryl Morey, again. I will never play. He is a liar. I'll never play for him again.
Interesting. I didn't hear that, but that's something.
Those guys were connected at the hip. I was just telling Dalton that.
He was floundering, Billy, so I came in here to save him.
Oh, yeah. What are you doing here?
Just saving him because he was floundering.
He does.
It's like
when you hear open segment, get ready.
He's like the bass on the wall that you see at your grandpa's house. Woo, woo, woo. Yeah,
Well,
and then, here comes Nick Savage to salve the day.
Well, I'm glad you
Nick
guys brought that up.
Savage.
I'm going to start doing something that you do,
What?
Billy.
What?
Ready?
Yeah. Okay, so
Well, you're just gonna get up and
all
leave
right,
him.
here we go. TexAgs Radio. Welcome back.
Who would host a full 3 hour?
I'm
TexAgs
looking at my
radio?
show packet today.
Billy or Olin? Which one would do the whole 3 hours first?
Olin. And he'd give you a lot of bad info. Just like him
Hot
saying
take
Connor Wigman was hot take Jake.
He just misspoke.
It's bad take.
Wigman was
Buchanan.
4-4 as a starter. Was he 3-1 as a starter? No, 2-2. Ole Miss, he lost. He's, I think what I care about with Connor Wigman is, but I've seen other people try to say that. Like, it's like they try to say like he's 4-4. Like, people are saying because he played against South Carolina. People try to use that as a loss. They try to say like they count Florida and they forget that he, was out that game with that flu, and that was Haynes that went and played hurt too. So that whole team was hurt. But that's one that really pisses me off is that Florida game, because A&M's kind of owned the East and they've owned Florida, and then they lost to South Carolina and Florida. You wish they'd have those back. Just kind of those are the two. Like, there's a lot of games for A&M under this do-over thing over the years, and any sports fan of any team has their do-over games. Damn, don't both of those fall into that category? We were talking the other day. If I could let you change the outcome, it has to be within reason.
Okay.
You can't go like, hey, if I could change the 2020 Alabama game, A&M would have been undefeated. A&M lost that, even though it got away from them right before halftime. They lost it handily. If you could change a couple of games that are reasonable to change, let's say it's a fun little endeavor because you could do it. You could also say what were the most significant wins, but you could also say if you could change a couple along the way in a tenure.
Okay.
What would it be so far in Jimbo's 5 years. If I let you change
Just
3 outcomes in 5 years.
Clemson.
Okay.
All right.
That's a good one.
Came down to it, right?
Would have been a massive win in game 2.
I mean, I'm sorry, but App State has to come to mind.
Yeah.
Okay. One more play.
Just for the sake of having to deal with people on Twitter.
And I'd say LSU 2021.
Okay. So I agree with you on at least one of those. LSU 21.
Which I think they won.
I do too. But they also could have got a 4th down stop or
Yeah.
could have got a 1st down on 2nd and 2 or 3rd and 2.
Props to Max for making the throw.
Max made the play on 4th down and then he hit the touchdown. But yeah, I think they make the right call. A&M played the game the way the game was played out. They should have won the game on Damani's strip. But still, that game, and I would probably include Ole Miss the game before that.
Okay.
They had the ball 1st and goal, down 15-10, could have taken the lead, had to kick a field goal. They still got the ball back.
Second half.
No, second. This was fourth quarter.
Quarter.
All of this. They got the ball back and they threw the pick. So, to me, yeah, they threw a pick or fumbled there and then threw the pick 6. But they had a chance to win that game in the 4th. And either of those 2 games, or you win both of those, you finish that season 10-2. You finish on, was it like a 7-game winning streak? You would have been 6-2 in the SEC. You would have beaten Bama. You would be sitting here right now having beaten LSU 4 out of 5 under Jimbo Fisher. You would have had back-to-back New Year's 6 bowl games in 20 and 21, and everyone would chalked up this year as an anomaly.
Right. You look at it completely
It
different.
would have changed the whole perception of the thing, and you really were right there in both. The other one, I think, but App State, that was probably where I'd go because of just, like the fallout of it. And I think what it did to the locker room probably, and the morale and the pressure on the coaches and things like that. Like if you win that game 20-17, 21-17, you finish off that drive there and they don't score at the end and you win. It's like, okay, you looked really bad, but you won. And they would have been, 5-0 going into Mississippi State and ranked, still ranked in the top 10. But I'll replace that, David, and I'll tell you, I would go with Alabama last year instead. Number one, as crazy as it sounds, you were a lot closer to winning that game than you were App State.
Right.
Alabama didn't control the game like App State did. You had the ball at the 2-yard line to win it on a play, and if they would have won it, Nuño, then I wonder what the effect that would have had on South Carolina, Auburn, Ole Miss even, but at least South Carolina and Auburn. I think this team was, instead of 5-7, they're at least an 8-4. But you also would have beaten Alabama and LSU last year. You would have beaten Alabama twice in a row. When they're coming in here this year, Nick Saban and the Tide are trying to avoid A&M becoming the first team since he's been there to beat them 3 consecutive years. I think only Ole Miss has beaten them more than once. A&M would have been the only other team to do that. I just think it would have changed so much, not just for last season, but even for – there's a world, David, and we'll go to break, where A&M's one play from me to you from beating Alabama and a terrible missed call by the officiating crew from being 4-0 the last 2 years against LSU and Bama. So for as far off as they seem at times, you think of the Auburn game, you think of App State, you think of Starkville last year, they're also like that close. So you talk about it a lot, like the margins, even in a down year, are so slim. And so you just have to keep getting talent in. But I think more than that, even the guys have to believe. And I think they do right now. I think the coaches and players do. I think the vibe is they just have to be playing good football in September, because in this league and in this sport, it can be fleeting, or if it's on your side, you can overwhelm opponents with it.
Right. By the way, speaking of Starkville, that's a game, too, that got away from you on a couple of just little minor things, right? The Devon fumble, the
Drop a pick six.
and then the block field goal with the dude was offside. So I mean, that game would feel completely different if that didn't happen the way it did.
My only thing on games like that is you ask yourself at the end of the day, you go, who played better?
They were the better team. Yeah, they
that
were.
day.
But I'm just saying it got out of hand and it didn't happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a break here. Talk Costa Vida. It is time. Every time I walk in here, Dalton, when he likes to make fun of you, brings up the sweet pork quesadillas because they're delicious there. I've had it. I think Billy's probably had it too. It's fantastic. You got the quesadillas there. You got the tortilla soup. You've got great salad options out there. It's fresh Mex done the right way there in South College Station. Love me some Costa Vida. They're open for mornings now too. Breakfast tacos, a little coffee, whatever you want to do to start your morning right. And, of course, the morning meetings, you can do them right there. And stay there for lunch, too. You have a little mid-morning meeting. You stay there for a little breakfast, and then, bam, you're at lunch, and you get some great food out there. Holly's done a great job there with Costa Vida. She's a great Aggie, and she cares about this community with the fresh Mex done the right way there at Costa Vida. It is in South College Station. Aggie owned and operated, 4501 Mills Park Circle in College Station. 4501 Mills Park Circle in College Station. It is Costa Vida. I know the audio's been a little off on YouTube. Apologies for that. We're fixing it as we are making the show all 3 hours live there on YouTube. So appreciate everybody just bearing with us. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We'll try this again, 23 and 23, presented by The Charge Apparel, Aggie owned and operated premier polos and tees made in the USA. All right, Billy, number 10 on the list is our friend Bryce Anderson, a guy that he showed that he was ready to play at big SEC level as a freshman, and we can only expect a big step up in year 2.
Well, yeah, I think Bryce was one of those freshmen in a year where a lot of freshmen flashed a hell of a lot of promise. You think of offensively and Cam Dewberry and Donovan Green, and then especially guys like Stewart and Wigman, and then defensively, so many of those defensive linemen, some other defensive backs had moments where you go, oh wow. But I think Bryce Anderson, he was up there with anybody in terms of just going, oh man, like he
was consistent.
He didn't like Wigman as a quarterback. I think, to go out and beat LSU showed so much. And I think Evan Stewart was probably, I'd say he was probably your best freshman. I'm thinking, Donovan Green started and Dewberry started and Wigman finished. I think Evan was your best freshman, but like in terms of just flashing where I went, oh man, I think he might be in the top 3 with Connor and Evan.
Yeah.
To me, like watching him going, damn.
Didn't feel like a freshman at all.
His future's really bright. There's just certain plays, there were certain games, there was a certain approach he had to play in football, a certain bit of dog in him. And then just the instincts and now what I've continued to hear in terms of his development, his leadership. He's a vocal guy. I love that quarterback background, but again, just a very instinctive football player. And I think if you took just his highlights, and I'm sure there are plays of him, missing tackles or I'm sure there were assignments that you watched that we don't know about necessarily that he probably blew or misfits or that happens as a freshman. I don't imagine it was probably less than your normal freshman, knowing how intelligent Bryce is. But man, if you just took some of his best plays, where that to me is where you're flashing like as a freshman, like, hey, this is what I'm capable of. And as I get older, you'll see a lot more of this. He reminded me a lot as a freshman, and it's not. It's a real interesting comparison. I'm not just saying it because what's about to happen, but he reminded me a lot of Antonio Johnson. Where as soon as he started getting out there, you went, "Oh boy, yeah, okay, that's what it's supposed to look like," and that's what I saw with Bryce Anderson right away. It reminded me of Antonio Johnson in that Arkansas game. And I think he get knocked out of that game for targeting. I don't remember if he did or if they reviewed it. But anyway, it reminded me of him in that game where I said, okay, the recruiting ranking and the fight they put up to get him was worth it because this kid's going to be really good. And sure enough, he left NFL. Was he a 3rd round? Or no, he went 5th. Yeah, he went later than he should have. Should have been a 3rd rounder. But Antonio was a really good player. I wish he would have come back one more year. But I think Bryce, that instant impact to me was like, okay, this is a kid that could end up being one of the best players on your defense later in his career. And if I'm going to say I kind of think that's going to be the case for him this year. Now, I think moving forward, he's got the potential to be a defensive captain, be one of your guys that goes to SEC media days, and be a guy he has, like, when I watch him play, I go, that defensive back, he could be a first-team All-SEC football player.
Yeah, he's and you compared him earlier to Evan and that same kind of what they meant to the team. Both have a similar structure. Both are same size. They go about their business differently, but there's a lot of similarities between those two.
Evan Stewart and him?
Yeah. Just looking at them physically, they look very much similar in my opinion. And obviously their impact on both sides.
I think they're
of the
both
ball.
Just gifted football players.
Yeah.
And young rising stars on this football team. And Evan had a little bit of a head start starting day one. Bryce was one of those guys that, like, as the season went on, he got get more and more chances and you saw that playing time build up, and I think he the word I would use to describe Evan Stewart is, I mean, see, you tell me talking about Evan here. The word I would use to describe Bryce Anderson is impactful. I think when he's in the game, you notice it.
Yep.
He's making an impact, and he is going to be a problem for SEC, not just passing games, but offenses in general, because I think he's going to be outstanding in run support as well.
All right. Instead of break, when we come back, I got a question about one particular player who's a wide receiver that we talked about just a tad bit, but not too much. Right now, we're talking Milliken Reserve, farm-to-table community in College Station. They've got farms, they got trails, they got wide open spaces, and their mission is to build a healthy community around nature. They've done that with just a beautiful place dedicated to the conservation of a healthy community, respect for that native landscape, and, of course, wildlife out there. 2,600 acres of open space and farms, 30 miles of trails and homes. Milliken Reserve connects families to nature and to each other, and they've done a wonderful job doing that, maintaining and restoring that natural habitat where all the animals love to hang out. White-tailed deer, the songbirds, the rabbits, the turtles, and homeowners there at Milliken Reserve sharing a legacy of conservation, which means generation after generation, you come home to that same pristine countryside place. An enduring resource and place to come together, relax, and reflect, to explore and discover. Milliken Reserve provides a natural setting for people to connect to each other. You can go hiking, biking, canoeing, kayaking. You've got equestrian trails, evening yoga, the summer camps, the music festivals, the farmer market tours. Learn more at millikenreserve.com, millikenreserve.com. Go ahead, tell us.
I'm Formio.
No, I want you to lead this segment.
Okay, well, I don't know who. I don't. You got to do
The
who-
intro?
Yeah.
Oh, it's David Gardner's Jewelers, our presenting sponsor.
David Gardner, longtime friend. Haven't seen him in a while.
Okay.
David Gardner's Jewelers.
And another friend of
presenting
yours,
sponsor.
this studio named after another friend of ours,
Uh,
Jason Rollo. Jack
Rollo Insurance
Yeah.
Studio. So yeah, that's why I don't host a show.
No? Yeah.
Another buddy.
And
Rollo, they've done a great job with mine.
they've done a wonderful
Lord
job with
knows.
mine. And what do you want to get into here in these closing minutes, William?
Whatever you
Sorry, Billy.
like.
I was going to ask you
You can
about
call me William.
All-Day Walker.
Oh yeah, man. Listen, I think he's been one of the. I wouldn't say surprises because the guys this summer would have told you this. They've come in here and mentioned him. Receivers, DBs. It's more than just what he does on the field. It's his attitude. Like he's really like a breath of fresh air out there. Like the mindset, the attitude, the approach to practice, meetings. The guys have really embraced him. Just to come from Grand Valley State, right, and come in here and just seamlessly transition into Texas A&M football. Not just the competition level, but also a locker room and a receiving room that's loaded. He's been, I'll tell you what, and what people don't understand, I mentioned this before, when he got recruited out of high school, the reason he ended up is he was like 5'10", 5'11". Now he's over 6'3". And some of their testing numbers, like what this guy runs, like what he can run versus his size, it's 100% NFL caliber. He's had some really good days. And that receiver room, we worried about, was it Keon Coleman at Michigan State?
Yes.
There were some other big names that were looking, the guy at USC out there that A&M wanted. There were some other big names. A.D. Mitchell at Texas, and I'm not downplaying that one. I think that's a huge addition for the Longhorns. But it'll be really interesting because physically and athletically, this dude's got it, and he's got 3 years to play. But I think he has an impact this year, and that's crazy. And how much does A&M's receiver position change, David, if he's an impactful guy as well? And I'm not putting numbers on him. I'm not saying, hey, this guy's going to come from the Division II ranks and climb up and be first team All SEC this year. But I'm saying if he has an impact, and they've got a 6'3.5", 6'4" receiver that can really run and make plays and stretch the field, and they've got a guy in Noah Thomas that we've talked about nonstop that can do the same. And then you've got Evan and Moose, and then the do-it-all, potentially all SEC, all-purpose back, receiver, whatever you want to call him in Anias. What do having those 2 6'4+ guys that can also really run and stretch the field, what does that do for the A&M quarterbacks, the A&M passing game, and what Bobby Petrino can do offensively? Telling you, he has a potential to really, and not only that, you need depth at that position, and he adds it.
Thank you, Billy.
All right.
Tomorrow on the program, Cousin Shane's going to be on the show. Yeah, he'll be on the show. It's TexAgs Radio. We'll see you mañana.